Mr. Ben Challis, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
So you are a music entertainment lawyer, is that right?
That is what I do as a day job, yes.
What does a music entertainment lawyer basically do?
What do I do? Shall I tell you what I do? I do a variety of things, really, and I've been doing it for quite a long time. But most of the time, I'm either looking at contracts, which is things I spend a lot of time doing, or I'm advising my small group of clients about things like copyright or trademark, or occasionally litigation, if they're at risk of being sued or indeed want to sue someone. It's not particularly something I specialise in. And because I work particularly in the live sector, it extends to health and safety as well, which obviously is a huge consideration when you have live audiences.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. You point the mic just towards your mouth a bit more.
Oh, a bit more? Yes, of course. Could you edit that bit out? Sorry.
If you bring it down, point it like that.
Like that?
That's it,
Okay.
yeah. Cool. So it keeps you busy then?
It keeps you busy, yeah, although I've got a year off now.
A year off? Oh, right, because you just...
I do Glastonbury.
Ah, okay.
So
That's your main... Is that your main...
Yeah, it's my main client. My main client's Glastonbury, the festival. I look after Damon Albarn's rolling eclectic circus of Western and African musicians called Africa Express.
Okay.
I work with a great big metal spider called Arcadia Spectacular.
Okay.
Which is made out of recycled cranes and jet engines and cars.
Wow.
And plays at festivals like Glastonbury, but also does Ultra, Miami. Has actually toured the world in the last 2 years.
So it's like an attraction.
It is an attraction. It has
Yeah.
a big DJ pod, which we get, major name DJs are now queuing up to play in.
Right.
You can get 20,000 people under it, so it's enormous. Wow. And it has a light show and a laser show and a sound system. So it does its own festivals, the Spider, but it also goes to other festivals as well. So I work with them, and I also work with I work with an organisation called Yourope, which is the European Festivals Association.
Okay.
Which includes some big ones like Roskilde and Ziget in Hungary and Exit in Serbia, and a lot mid-sized and small festivals as well, right across Europe, which is interesting because I'm still their lawyer, but I am concerned of Brexit, obviously, because it would be perverse to have a British lawyer representing the European Festivals Association once Britain leaves Europe. But we shall see.
We still don't know how that's going to play out, do we? It's taken a long time.
For the live industry, it's a nightmare. I mean, it's not a political point. It's a nightmare. When we look back, you're not looking back at the rosy time people tend to talk about with Brexit. You look back at, in particular, carnets, which were documents you had to carry to cross any border to satisfy customs. And obviously, in currency, currency won't change. But we used, when I used to tour, used to take these wedge of carnets and wedges of paperwork, and obviously, every time you crossed the border, you lost money because you had to change your currency over. The currency has changed to the euro, although we've still got sterling. But the bureaucracy which will come in, if we have to have work visas or work permits for every European country,
a lot more complicated.
Touring, and of course we export tours. So Britain, we export music. We're a music exporter, and we particularly export live music into Europe. I know it's shifted, and we now re-import some, but overall, we're an exporter of music. So if barriers are put in our way, it's not very healthy for the industry I work in. It's just more overcomplicates things even more than they already were. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Especially if you're doing a tour where you're going to be doing 5 different countries in Europe.
Well, you do 20. You do 20.
That's each different set of paperwork for all of them.
Absolutely. I think borders would have tightened anyway because of the threat of terrorism. I think we're all aware of that. So it wasn't going to be as easy as it has been because there are other external factors. But if you have to apply for a work permit for every country, every European country, it's going to be very difficult.
Some countries may end up just getting missed out because the paperwork just didn't get done in time. Because it's out of your hands when you're waiting for paperwork to...
Absolutely. So you say, well, if Belgium's not issued work permits, we won't be doing Belgium.
Yeah, or countries that weren't an issue before suddenly become an issue.
Yeah, exactly,
Who doesn't like... We'll find out who doesn't like the UK.
Yeah, we will.
Just how hard it is to get in and out. So as far as Glastonbury, do you do the TV side of it as well?
That's how I started. I started at Glastonbury doing the TV. So I was brought in by Mike Leavis. I was introduced to him in 1993. A long time ago now.
What was the first Glastonbury year?
The first Glastonbury ever was 1970.
Right.
So it's going to be 50 years old in 2020.
Wow. Has it been consistent? It's never taken a break?
Yes, it's taken. We now take a break every 5 years, which is why that's why I've got a year off this year coming, because we take. Michael always likes the rest of the land, but when it originally started, there were just 2 festivals to start with, 70 and 71. Then there was a gap. Then there was a couple more. Then it became a regular festival in the 80s, and by the 90s when I joined, we were onto this 4 years on, 1 year off system. So I started I met Michael in '93, and I started in '94. Which wasn't the BBC. Actually, the first 2 years on telly were Channel 4. So, and they were both glorious, sunny, amazing festivals. Then we had a year off, and then the BBC came in because they wanted to cover Glastonbury, and we had 2 horrendous mud years.
Every year.
Absolutely horrendous. And I feel quite proud of them for sticking with us, really.
Yeah.
Rather, because they were both 2 of the worst years ever. And we've been with the BBC ever since, but the TV was my main job to start with. So my main job to start with was, doing the deal with Channel 4, doing the deal with Tyne Tees TV, who were then the ITV regional contractor who actually did the production work. They actually physically brought the cameras, brought the staff, brought the production crew, along with a company called Initial TV, and we put it together. And it was the first year was terrifying. It was so late going into it. We were planning 11 hours of live TV, which in those days was a lot for music. Not perhaps for sport, but no one had really ever covered a festival live before.
Yeah.
So
it's quite an undertaking, that.
It was a huge undertaking.
Especially when no one's done it before and you've kind of got to figure it out.
Yeah, no, we just went for it. We only covered 2 stages. We only covered 2 stages in the first 2 years.
There's some teething problems then?
No, it's just all we physically could do.
No, but I mean, in doing that though, was it
teething problems? In some ways, because it was so last minute, you just went for it. Which
hope for the best.
Something I've always liked about live events is they have to happen.
Yeah.
So actually, you just get on with it. If you're making a feature film, and I have worked on feature films as a lawyer, you can always reshoot. You can always do this. You can always delay. Go to post-production, re-edit.
Yeah.
It's a live event. By 8 o'clock on Tuesday, well, you know what? The door's going to open. Everyone's going to come in, and you've got to go and play. So it's got to happen.
Yeah, that would be. So how's your job changed from then to now? Then
originally I just did TV, and then they obviously I knew I was a lawyer, but I just got involved in more aspects of the festival.
Okay.
One of the things I got involved with very early on was actually our trademark or trademarks, which sounds a bit sort of non-Glastonbury, but we realised that people were using the name who had no connection to either the town or the festival, normally to get a commercial advantage out of it. In particular, we found as the internet developed, dodgy websites, whether they were for porn or for bogus tickets, not just for Glastonbury, and just sort of, dressing themselves up as connected to Glastonbury. So we registered the word Glastonbury and Glastonbury Festival as trademarks, and it has helped us. It's helped us protect the name, the brand, really. Michael hates it being called a brand, but it is a brand. Particularly because he runs it so unusually. We are a business as such, but he gives a lot of the profit to charity. So we're quite unusual, and sometimes we don't want to be associated with other brands. Really, we don't want to be associated with them at all. And you get people saying, "Well, we'll give you more money." Well, the money's not the issue. We're not run like Pepsi Cola or McDonald's.
It's all about the bottom line.
Yeah. She's all about the bottom line. Yeah, we're much different. So I've got very involved in that, and then I got more involved in the booking process. As live engagement contracts got bigger and bigger, I had to read more and more. And the TV got more complex because obviously we entered the digital age. So what went from being we went from being sort of 11 hours of live TV with perhaps a 2-hour repeat program in the next week, went originally when BBC Three, which of course has now gone fully online, when BBC Three launched the TV station, we went on to 2 channels at the same time, which seemed quite radical then. Wow, yeah.
BBC Two,
yeah. Then we went on to Red Button later. Then the Red Button arrived, and then obviously streaming came in. So we were very early. We were asked, and we said, "Yeah, we'll go for it." But of course, it was quite complex because you're working not only with British acts, you might perhaps understand what the iPlayer is, let alone what streaming is. You're talking to American acts, often American superstar acts, who are just saying, "Sorry, you want to allow your viewers to download," which is what the iPlayer basically is, download all right, we get the 30 days bit, or then it was 7 days. Download our performance. And we don't get paid for that, basically. Yeah. And you could talk to these major superstars, lawyers and agents. Yeah. And they would just go, well, you're mad. No one ever agreed to that. And then we said, well, the BBC, that's what the BBC... And yeah, in some ways...
Is it different because it's the BBC? It's not a commercial channel? I think is that the main reason why?
The BBC, because it's the BBC, does help. You know,
that's the brand in itself, isn't it?
It is a brand, yeah. Sort of... I mean, to us, they're a very good fit. We've been other broadcasters have approached us over the years, but we've stuck with the BBC because they are a good fit. You know, we share a lot of the same sort of approaches. You know, that we don't want a headline sponsor. You know, we don't want to be.
No, you just want a group of sponsors.
We have sponsors a live event. We certainly don't want a broadcast sponsored.
Yeah.
And obviously the BBC would never do that because they're the BBC.
Yeah, I think that works in your favour. Really, that
yeah,
way.
Absolutely. It suits us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you get started in the music industry?
How
then?
did I get started?
Was it the traditional from a band into that side of it?
So I was in a punk rock band when I was 15 really, 15 and 16. And listeners, I have bought Marc a CD.
I'll check that out definitely.
Yeah, we were called the Ignorance, spelt wrongly because we thought it was quite funny, and we were 15 and 16-year-olds.
You were ignorant over the spelling of it.
Yeah, that was the whole joke. You know, we thought we were so smart. And ignorant at the same time, and so we formed the band, and we did reasonably well actually. We actually started recording. I'm from Kent originally. We used to record in local studios, and we used to rehearse in a local village hall, rather like the one I'm in now, but not smart actually. We used to do all right, play local gigs, and then we were picked up by a label, and it was a guy called Miles Copeland. Whose brother was Stuart Copeland, who was a drummer in the Police. Yeah. Who at that point were not at all well known. They were a very small band. So Stuart used to drive down from London to Graveney Village Hall near Whitstable and help us develop the band. And Glenn Tilbrook from Squeeze came down and helped produce recordings for us. But they weren't famous at the time. They were, they were a couple of rungs above us. Yeah. And Squeeze were already recording, and the Police were started to do well. And then, funny enough, Roxanne broke, and we were no longer a priority for Stuart. And I'm really not saying that in a bad way.
No, you can understand that.
I can understand that. So, in fact, we never got signed in the end. We were about to get signed, and then the Police took over everything Miles was doing, his brother was doing as a label. But we did all right. We played the Marquee and played a couple of London clubs, played some university dates. It was okay. And then our drummer died, sadly.
All right.
So, and I went to university. Because the punk I am, I decided to go and be a law student. Not necessarily to be a lawyer, but I decided to go and be a law student. Right. So I went to London University, to King's College, and read law, as you have to say.
What was in your decision behind? Because that's quite an intelligent decision.
Well, I actually talked to one of my teachers, and I wanted to do business studies. And they didn't really exist, those courses then.
Right.
They were few and far between and very new. And I remember Mrs. Geldard, she said, you'd be better off doing a law degree if you want to do that, because I think you'll enjoy it and it'll serve you just as well. So I thought, well, that's radical, because I'd never, ever considered it. So I applied for law, and I got good A-levels, so I got the grades and went to London. And London was always my first choice. I wanted to be in London.
Yeah.
So I went to London and studied law for 2 years.
So what years was this?
Well, if I tell you that, I give away my age. 1980, I went to university.
Right. Okay. Year before I was born.
Well, I probably now I'll come into it later, but a lot of people I know now. I've worked at Glastonbury longer than they've been alive, and you think, oh, that's a leveler, isn't it? No pun intended. But I sort of started in 1980, and I did 2 years, and then I stood for election as the sabbatical, so full-time entertainment officer. Okay. Which you could do at university in those days. We were spoilt. We got grants to go to university, and our fees were paid for us.
Right.
So, there was there was student debt, but it wasn't the massive debt.
Not like it is now.
No, it's nothing like it is now. So, and I decided I'd have a year off, or I wanted to have a year off, and I wanted to be the entertainment officer. So I got elected. I stood for election, got elected.
Are you still playing music at all at this time?
No. We were sort of half together. The drummer had died. We did have another drummer called Russell, who came and joined us. We were still the Ignorance. We then changed our name to the Beekeepers. but it sort of fizzled out really. It was by chance, me and Stephen, who's the main guitarist, he's actually a Michelin-starred chef now, Stephen Harris, right. Who launched a book last week called The Scotsman. He's still in Whitstable in Graveney, in a pub called The Scotsman, which is Michelin-starred. But he went to the same university as me, so at least we were in touch. Yeah. As in, we were actually both in the Strand in London, so we saw each other, very regularly. But no, it sort of fizzled out really. We both did other things. By then we were doing other things, and I got into the business side really at that point. From being the college entertainment officer, I started booking bands, and then started understanding perhaps another side of the business. I knew a little bit about record labels. I knew a little tiny bit about music publishing, but I got the bug really. Yeah. I got the bug. I sort of got really interested in the music industry. But I did my third year, and graduated and got a law degree. And then I decided I was going to do a postgraduate and qualify as a barrister. So I did that. And I'd set up...
Did you find that quite easy to just do that? Did you find it?
No, it's not easy.
I was going to say, just the way you made it sound so
simple. No, it wasn't easy. No, it wasn't easy. No, it was hard work.
Yeah.
But no, so I was called to the bar, which is a very formal ceremony.
Yeah.
With my grandparents watching and my parents watching, which was lovely.
Yeah.
And I was about to start what's called a pupillage, which is when you're a young barrister, you have to work, in effect, free for 6 months for another barrister, like a training contract, really. So I was going to do that, and I had a really good pupillage lined up, which is quite unusual, because I had no real connections in the law, and normally a lot of the time you get through family and friends. But I managed to get a really good pupillage lined up with a really, really excellent man. And then I got a phone call, and I was at home, I was decorating my then girlfriend's flat, and the phone went, and it was a guy I knew from when I was an entertainment officer, who said, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm decorating my girlfriend's flat." "Oh, right. Are you looking for work?" I said, "Well, not really. I've got pupillage coming up." He said, "Oh, it's 3 months." I said, "Oh, what's he doing?" He said, "It's working for a man called Harvey Goldsmith," who at that time was by far the biggest pop promoter.
Yeah.
Well, in the UK, and possibly the best known in the world. So I was like, "Wow." When's the interview? He said, "This afternoon."
Wow.
I was like, okay, and I was in London, so it was okay. So I put on my sort of, polyvico suit, and the only clean shirt I probably had available, and a tie, and got on the Northern Line and rattled up from Balham up to Oxford Street, where Harvey was based in those days, and met him. And he was actually doing research into the Docklands Arena. This is going back to my age. The Docklands Arena wasn't built at that point. The Isle of Dogs, which is now where Canary Wharf is, and all that was derelict, completely. It'd been razed to the ground, not derelict. It'd been razed to the ground for redevelopment.
Right.
And the London Arena was planned to be a new 12,000 capacity arena. It's since been demolished as well, which does show my age, and is basically under Canary Wharf now.
Right.
So I was doing research into that area of Docklands and how audience flow would, how people would get there. It was nothing to do with being a lawyer. It was just how it would work.
Logistics.
Logistics. So I did that. Missed Live Aid, because the day of Live Aid I decided I was so committed to my job I'd go to Alton Towers and look at pedestrian flows, even though I could have got a guest ticket to Live Aid, a VIP ticket.
I could have got a crew. Now.
Well, yeah, I sort of do. Maybe not. It got me. Anyway, I did that, and I remember listening to the radio driving there, going, "Wow, my God, this sounds amazing."
Just for the Queen moment.
All of it. Everyone from the Status Quo came on.
Yeah,
it was just awesome.
Yeah. I don't think anyone expected it to be that good.
No one expected it that good. But funny enough, because I've been seeing Bob Geldof every other week, because he came to all the meetings were held at our offices.
Yeah.
So you'd see the sort of mid-year would come in and Bob would come in. And I must say at that point I was already getting blasé to sort of, famous people wandering around, because they're just like you.
Yeah.
And Bob and his bloody irritating dog. But so we did that, and I worked for 3 months, and it was a 3-month contract, and at my leaving party, in the boardroom, Harvey's partner walked in and said, "Why are you leaving?" And I said, "Well, because my contract's expired." As a sort of slightly gobby student or ex-student would say, and he said, "Well, we don't want you to leave. We want you to be our lawyer." And to go back a little bit, during the 3 months I was there, I had looked at a couple of contracts for other people. Said, "Oh, could you just read this?" And I'd gone through things and helped out a bit because I found it interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to get paid for it. I just did it because of interest. And they said, "Well, you are a lawyer, so we'd like you to work for us as a lawyer." I was like, wow. Realising, as that was told to me, that I had no experience, but B, I had a pupillage lined up, which most people would think would be insane to throw away.
Yeah.
Because they were hugely sought after. So I said, well, right, I'm obviously very interested. They said, a chance of a lifetime. I've qualified as a lawyer. I'm fascinated by the live sector. And the biggest promoter in the UK is offering me a job, which not only does live work, they had a TV division as well.
Yeah.
It was for me, it was perfect. So I rang up my pupil master, who, his name I can't remember now, which really upsets me because he was such a nice bloke. And he just said, well, you should take that. I was like, well, what? He said, well, I can get people tomorrow morning, but you'll never get a job offered to you like that ever again.
Yeah.
It is because obviously we'd met quite a few times and he knew what my interests were. He said, you'll never get a job, anything like that again. Go for it.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow. Wow, I wasn't expecting that. So I rang back and said, yeah, I'll be back in on Monday. So back in on Monday I was. I worked for Harvey for 3 years. Well, the Allied Entertainment Group it was then called. And I left for a short period and went to work for a TV station. And they tempted me back with a much higher salary, which they probably should have paid me before I left. And went back and worked for another 2.5 years with Harvey. And by then I decided I want to set up on my own.
Okay.
So I decided to set up on my own.
What was your main reason for that?
Freedom.
Yeah, I suppose.
You know, just do my own thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a punk. So punk's punk's a mindset.
Rebellious.
Yeah, it's not rebellious. It's doing your own thing.
Yeah,
I think,
true.
partially.
Yeah.
And
well, I suppose you picked up things along the way, and you think, "This, I'd want to do it this. I want to do it this way." But because you're my boss, I can't really tell you how to do it. But I could do it myself.
That's all extremely true.
Yeah.
I have to be careful what I say, but that's all extremely true.
Yeah,
Marc.
yeah.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I still see Harvey sometimes, so you might.
But
find
I'm sure he's pleased you did that anyway.
Yeah, I enjoy working there.
You still keep in touch with a lot of people from back then?
Yeah, a lot actually. We were a really good group of friends. So I'm still friends with most of the people I work with from Harvey's.
Do you end up back down in London for business things a lot?
Yeah, I've got a flat in London.
Okay.
So I've still got base in London. I don't know where people think I exist from. I think a lot of people think I'm based in Glastonbury.
Mr. Glastonbury.
Well, Mr. Glastonbury lawyer. But in the modern, we decided when we moved to Cumbria. One of the reasons we moved is because I still had a flat in London. But secondly, obviously now with technology, with mobiles and broadband, you really can be anywhere. So for me, it's a joy.
You do meetings via like Skype and all that sort of stuff?
I don't do Skype.
Oh, some kind of video
meetings.
technology.
No, I tend to do meetings face to face. I still do meetings face to face. But there are less meetings than there used to be.
Yeah.
So I'm not a Luddite, but I'm not a huge fan of Skype and things like that. I just get on with the way I want to do it.
Well, they're only sort of, if there's no other option, I suppose, then at least it's there as a backup. But so which was the best for you, like, period for live music, like, in terms of what you do? Like, which was the golden era?
For me personally, punk.
Yeah, punk, yeah.
Yeah, but then I was 16.
Yeah.
I think anyone's going to say the most exciting, well, not anyone, but, the most exciting period for me was the fact that I found it, the bands like The Damned and the Sex Pistols and The Clash, unbelievable. However, I grew up in Canterbury, which is near Whitstable, where the band was formed. And Canterbury had a very strong progressive rock movement, bands like Soft Machine and Kevin Ayers, and Caravan. And Caravan, we used to go to a local pub we went to, the Miller's Arms. Right. So they became friends. It was quite bizarre. The ones we should have hated each other, because that's what the newspapers told us. We obviously hated hippies and prog rockers. They were such nice blokes and so helpful, genuinely helpful. When we set the band up, they were like full of actually really good advice. So we had, really interesting talks with them. So that was great. But since, music, I love when Britpop started. I found Britpop fascinating.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful
buzz then, wasn't there?
There was there really was a buzz.
Yeah. The whole world was picking up on it, weren't they?
Yeah.
America was fascinated by it.
And we were lucky at Glastonbury. I said it was actually 94, my first year. Yeah, we had Oasis, we had Blur, we had Pulp, we had everybody. Yeah. And 95, they were all back, and they'd all grown so much in that year. It was extraordinary. But we had people like Elastica. We had so many of the other bands in Supergrass. It was a really good list of excellent bands playing on our stages, and it was great fun, and it was exciting to be there, and it was exciting to see them develop. Oasis have been sort of a perennial at Glastonbury. Pulp have. Yeah. Blur have. All three of those, who were perhaps the three biggest, they've all made regular appearances at the festival. Yeah. And done very well, and done very well for us.
With all them?
No, only at the festival.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, at the festival. Yeah.
Yeah. So you cater for their sort of needs then.
Well, I don't personally.
No, but
certainly not. Yeah, I mean they're. I mean, I think probably the one everyone asks about is Oasis. Will they? I think if they ever did reform, which I think is unlikely, I must say.
I think it's unlikely.
I think it's unlikely, but I think if they did, they'd probably do Glastonbury.
Yeah.
Because it would be the logical place to reform at. Yeah. However, I don't think they're going to. So I'm not going to. Please, no one listening to this think that I'm spreading, reforming rumours because it's unlikely.
Did you see the documentary?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
After seeing that, there's no real. It's not going to happen.
No.
Too much has happened there, I think.
Too much has happened there, yeah.
Which is a shame. It's a shame.
I mean, over there again, the Eagles and Hell Freezes over tour.
That's true.
Things do happen.
It's a big thing these days. A lot of bands reforming, isn't it?
It's money. It's not just money.
It's nostalgia as well.
It's nostalgia, but it's mostly. I mean,
but nostalgia does sell. To be fair.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, people are happy to pay. The older generations are happy to pay, perhaps to recapture that wonderful moment from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And if it's whether it's Spandau Ballet or Kim Wilde or whatever it might be, or even older bands, they'll pay for it.
It's an industry within inside itself.
Massive industry. It's become much more prominent now, but for many years it's forgotten about.
Yeah.
And those who did it were making tidy sums of money out of it.
I'll bet,
And coupled with that, of course, you've got musicals as well. That's the other thing, which obviously the Take That one's just come out.
Yeah.
But there's Queen and all that. People basing entire stage shows on a band and their songs.
Yeah.
Which again is big business. When I used to lecture law at university, it's particularly entertainment law, media law, and I used to try and explain why Elton John did the music for Lion King, and the economics are fascinating because everyone goes, he'll do much better selling albums. You say, well, albums aren't selling what they used to. I said, but if you're doing a matinee and 7 shows every week, so 8 shows a week in a 2,000 capacity theatre in London, and I'm not going to do it now, but you put the ticket price in, and the songwriter gets 3% of the box office.
Yeah.
So every day Elton's getting a couple of grand.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting him down in the slightest.
No.
Quite the reverse. What a brilliant decision. Because he writes great music and great lyrics with Bernie Taupin, and then they're getting...
he's still
all
getting
that
to
money.
Perform.
Well, his songs are getting performed. Yeah. He doesn't have to be there though, which is great.
Well, I suppose these days he's not selling any albums, so.
Well, pretty good. I think our generation, those above me, do buy albums still.
I still buy albums, but overall, no one's really making money out of actually selling albums these days, are they?
No. It's a very difficult business now. Streaming obviously is taking over.
But it's not going to replace it financially, though, is it?
Well, it might do for the record labels. It depends how much they pass over to the artists, which at the moment is a very, very debatable issue because the record labels, they're businesses, and they don't want to pay anything like what I think almost all artists believe they should be paid.
But would you agree that the record labels basically buried their head in the sand when the file sharing thing first cropped up?
Oh, totally, yeah. I mean, they were the first to be affected. So the music industry, no one had been pirated on that scale before, and they didn't know how to deal with it. They made some terrible mistakes. I'll tell you the biggest mistake: they let lawyers run their policy, and that was it. And these stories
they
of
just turned to the lawyers and said, "What do we do?
What do we do?" Yeah, and the answer is litigate, sue 12-year-olds for downloading Happy Birthday. Sue grandmas who have no idea that someone's using their very limited internet connection to download a film, or a music file.
You should be educating these people.
It was a dreadful period in the music industry, absolutely dreadful. It was foolish. A lot of people knew it was foolish, but no one knew what to do. And at that point, people were writing off the value of Warner's and Universal and Sony, saying, well, in 5 years you won't exist. Now that has changed. It's changed radically because of streaming. But it's again in my generation, in your lifetime, downloads have come and gone.
Yeah.
The download market is evaporating rapidly.
Was it just streaming then?
It's just streaming, yeah. Downloads really, I mean, if you look at iTunes, apart from that, we've just cancelled their festival going forward. but people don't pay to download now. There's a lot of stream ripping going on, which is, but I don't think, most people are getting used to the idea of streaming.
I use
Spotify. Spotify. You don't need files anymore.
No.
Because it's always there.
It makes sense. It's convenient.
Everything's there on demand.
Yeah.
So
as long as people are paying for the privilege, that's what worries me, that people find ways to do that without.
Yeah, they do. But people do like not to pay.
I've said this before on the podcast many times, but the fact that the company that did know what to do isn't a record company. It's a computer company.
Yeah, it's a computer company.
That tells you everything you need to
know. It does
know.
tell you. I absolutely agree. It tells you everything you need to know.
So
the record industry or music industry couldn't work out how to monetize their business in the digital age. They know now.
But they missed the boat on that one. I would have, in an ideal world, they could have seen album sales are going out the window, so let's bring in streaming and everyone can just...
But that took Spotify to do that, really, and Deezer, and it's external to the industry. But that's not a bad thing either.
But don't the record companies somewhat own Spotify, haven't they? Bought into it.
They own bits of everything, I think. They've got given shares of everything.
Yeah.
They certainly do. I haven't seen the shareholdings recently. And again, that'll be a long-term argument between the artists and the labels, because the artists will say, well, the only reason you have those shareholdings is because of our catalogue. So why don't we get a share of your shareholding in the likes of Spotify and Vivo?
Exactly.
And that will be, there are arguments already. And a lot of the Music Managers Forum in this country around the world is now much more vocal on behalf of artists. In the old days, artist managers used to be very isolated. You're an artist manager. You might not even know any other artist managers. You were probably the roadie, or you might have been the van driver, and now you're the manager. And it means you may not know what's going on. Why would you know about copyright? Why would you know about trademarks? Why would you know about contract clauses in royalty reducers in record deals? You wouldn't. And now that's all changed, and managers tend to be much better. I don't mean educated as in they've been to university or college. I mean,
but they need to know the full.
They're more informed by their peer group about what is and isn't, going on, and what makes you money and what loses you money.
Yeah, like 360 deals.
They were interesting. But they were the buzzword for a while. Everyone, you've got to do a 360 deal. I was going, really don't put all your eggs in one basket. No. But, everyone wanted to do, including a lot of artists wanted to do them as well. And I'd be going, really, the old days, the old advice would always be, try not to sign your music publishing rights to the same company as your record label. However much they'll tell you they're not connected, they're the same company. And you won't get double the effort. Whereas if you sign, let's just say, your recorded music rights to Warner's and your music publishing rights to Sony, they'll both work for you.
Yeah.
But, nowadays a lot of artists are realising that they may not need a record label. I'm not sure that's always right.
No. You can certainly survive without one.
You can survive without one. And those, certainly a lot of established artists, would never re-sign now because they can make so much out of live. And a lot of them have learnt that actually... You may not like this, but the fact is recorded music doesn't make that much money at the moment, and it is often a better promotional tool than it is.
That's all it is. It's to persuade people to like it enough to pay to come and see you play live.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's
pay.
Like you spend all that money just to get because the pressure is all now the live show. Selling tickets, people paying to come and see you and buy your merch. That's your industry now. It's not. Do the album, but then forget about it.
Yeah, if you make some money out of it out of streaming, fantastic. And you make money long term, probably.
Yeah.
But the fact is,
it's definitely a long term thing now, isn't it?
Give it away. People give away music, and it's not a bad thing to do.
No. But I would still always advise people to spend money on it and make it good quality.
Yeah.
Even though you're not going to make money ever or short term, just make it sound good because poor recordings can ruin your reputation. Like that's what would prevent someone from coming and seeing you live if your recording sounds terrible. Because they could ruin good songs as well. You can have good songs, but they sound
I mean, if it sounds crap, no one's going to pick up on your song. Yeah, it's true.
But it's crazy how quickly it's changed.
That's one of the exciting things about the music industry is it's so fast moving. But there's been, a number, as I said just now, the fact that the download market has grown and is now declining in a 10-year period. We've never had technology change that rapidly.
No.
If you look back to the technological shifts, when radio first came out, it was perceived to be the enemy of the recorded music sector.
Yeah. When really it was just more of an advert for them.
Absolutely it was, yeah. Absolutely it was.
Because you hear it on the radio, then you go and buy it.
Yeah. But the record labels originally, because they didn't know what it was, didn't get that. And that's how it evolved. The battles between MTV and ITV and the record labels about whether or not they should pay for videos. In the days when broadcasting a video channel was a lucrative business.
Right.
I mean, for a while, MTV was hugely powerful. It was
when it used to play music, yeah.
Well, I haven't watched it for a decade, maybe.
Mind you could argue that they probably make more money now from crappy reality TV.
Well, you probably could,
because that's big business in itself.
It is big business, yeah.
But yeah, MTV was was the place to be, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the VJs were huge stars.
Yeah.
Massive. Yeah, they were celebrities.
But things like, I remember Headbangers Ball on MTV when people, these presenters you'd never heard of became some of the biggest people
superstars
in the scene.
Yeah, across the whole of Europe,
opening their own restaurants and bars and places, and it was just like wasn't possible because I think MTV started in '81, was it? Definitely the beginning of the '80s.
Now there's a question.
Definitely, because there was a few videos in the '70s, but there wasn't really anywhere to play them, like Top of the Pops.
That was it. It was very limited.
MTV was like the first dedicated place that only played music videos.
Yeah,
which was like, and still people didn't really know how to take it, or some bands refused for years.
They did.
Like Metallica.
Yeah.
They waited till '88.
Was it until they did their first? I didn't know that.
The video for One was there, and what a dark video that was. But it worked because they were built up that so much like interest in them, and then when that video came out, it just.
Well, as you probably know, they were our first metal pyramid stage headliner at Glastonbury, and they did really well.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people went on the grounds they'd stay for 2 or 3 songs, which at a festival is what a lot of people do.
Yeah,
you know, that's the joy of a festival. Yeah. You can go and see something, and if you don't like it, it doesn't matter because there's 10 other stages.
Exactly. Yeah,
and they kept their audience. And funny enough, the TV audience, I had a look at the ratings. And me and the executive producer of the BBC, we discussed it beforehand. We were both pretty sure it would start high and drop off pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
And it started high and dropped off a little bit, and they held it to the end.
Yeah.
And we were like, wow, people actually have really, I mean, patronising to Metallica, really enjoyed this. They've actually sat there and watched it both in the live arena and at home. And they were a good band to have, I've got to say.
Yeah, I think, being a big fan as I am, I think they carefully picked their set list to sort of balance it out.
Bands who do headline slots at Glastonbury have to think about what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, Jay-Z was wonderful.
Yeah.
And I had never been a Jay-Z fan. And he came on, as you probably remember, he came on at Glastonbury and started with Wonderwall because there'd been all that, you know, public debate about what Noel had said about there shouldn't be a rapper headline on the pyramid stage, which was more genreist than anything else. And he came on and did that, and you know what, he had the audience within 10 seconds. He had the audience.
Yeah.
And to go from that into 99 Problems was an awesome move. You know, and you thought this is going to go down well. Whereas Kanye, I thought, did a very poor set. Only because he didn't bring a live band. So and I just thought
to fill a big stage.
To fill a big stage.
It's just you. You're like Ed Sheeran.
He did manage it though.
That's what I'm saying.
He somehow managed it. Yeah.
He put in the performance.
We were expecting Ed to bring a band originally. There was a lot of debate about it. Would he bring a band? Would he? Because obviously he can use a band.
Times must be tight. He must be saving some money.
Yeah. Okay. I think Ed's doing very well, actually. Very well indeed.
But what about Foo Fighters? Did you?
Oh, they were great. I thought they were my favourite last year.
Because they had to cancel the year before because he broke his
leg.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. I thought they were great. And
was it Florence and the Machine who did?
Yeah, she stepped up. She was second on the bill that night.
She did a cover of Times Like These, I think it was.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. And in fact, there were a lot of good. She was brilliant. But I was glad they came this year. They were really majestic, really.
Yeah.
And it is just an extraordinary set they do. And they're like Bruce Springsteen. They would have played for 5 hours.
They would have.
If we hadn't got a curfew, they would have just kept going.
Yeah. They've got such a varied set list as well.
They have. And they've got a huge catalogue now.
Yeah.
And you forget
how long did they play for? Was it like 2.5 hours?
Yeah, it was over 2 hours. I mean, the longest we probably ever had was Bruce.
Of course, the boss.
But who was very hard to persuade his people. No, we have a curfew. We will stick to the curfew. Because, we've always said to even the major superstars, we're not prepared to risk the festival's curfew.
No. What happens if they do?
Well, we're at risk of... we could turn it off, yeah. We would have to turn it off, yeah. I mean, obviously he had the plug pulled in Hyde Park the same year.
Right.
But he didn't run over, by the way. But, we were saying, go on earlier. Oh, I don't want to go on too early. Well, then you'll have to just do... your 2.5 hour set, But he was brilliant. I mean, he's a massive star, and he did actually really well for us, and we were really pleased to have him. Almost everyone we ever had who's headlined the Pyramid stage, they just step up. And they know.
Yeah, you've got to, really, haven't you?
You've got to, they know that it's, Dolly. Dolly was amazing.
Yeah.
I can't say I've been a Dolly fan as such.
No,
I'm quite proud. I've got my name on her last album.
There you go.
I never thought I'd be saying that as a credit, because we put the bonus disc was live at Glastonbury. So we got credit. Right. So it was rather nice, actually. I've got that at home. It's lovely. But she was great, and she understood what she was doing.
Yeah.
And she knew what she was doing. And when Shirley Bassey did the Pyramid Stage, she sort of cross-referenced the Arctic Monkeys, and sort of clearly, she wore boots with sort of, Diamante stud saying DSB, Dame Shirley Bassey, and she wore a ball gown. And I remember, funny enough, I mentioned him earlier, my old boss, Harvey Goldsmith, was her manager at the time. And he came to see me before she went on stage. He said, she's really, really nervous. Do you think she'll get away with wearing, can I show you what she's going to wear? I said, well, I'm the lawyer. He said, well, just want your opinion. I said, and it was this pink ball gown with a pink feather boa. And I just went, that's awesome, Harvey.
Perfect.
That is the perfect thing to wear. And then he said, oh, she's really nervous about photographers. She doesn't want them in the pit, because normally we allow photographers in the pit for the first 3, and then they come out because we want the audience to enjoy without photographers snapping away, even without flash.
Hate that as well.
They do. They've only got 3 songs to get there, or sometimes 1 song.
And they all end up with the same shot.
They all the same shot. And he said, she really, really, she's just so nervous. She's nervous about the TV, but she's really nervous about cameras. I said, okay. I said, but having now seen the outfit, I said, I guarantee, because she's playing on the Sunday Legends slot, I said, I guarantee you she'll be on the front page of almost every British newspaper if she wears it and she lets photographers in. He said, oh, God. I said, but it's your call. Why don't you let them in after 5 songs when she's... He said, can we do that? I said, absolutely. I said, absolutely.
It's up to you.
It's up to you. And he said, okay, we'll do that. Well, I'll go and talk to Shirley. He came back and said, yeah, she's happy with that. Just wants to get into a rhythm and get into it. And big-headed, but of course it was on the front page. Shirley Bassey in a pink ball gown and feather boa at Glastonbury. Of course it's going to be on the front pages. It's what you want. Always what you want.
Who are some of your favourite artists that you've worked with then?
I worked with, I don't know.
Have any of them become like sort of friends?
No.
No?
No, I'm far too miserable. Certainly not. I'm not making friends with musicians. My God, I'll protect them and look after them. I'm not really friend though. I was a manager for a while, and you won't have heard of this artist. Well, you might have done. There's an artist called Anne Clark who I worked with, and I was very proud of what we did together. She's British, but her career here never took off the way it did in continental Europe, where particularly in Northern Europe, she was and is a big star. And I very much enjoyed working with her, actually. And really I stopped because Glastonbury sort of started taking over my life, and Anne was aware of that. So, I've never worked particularly with artists. I've always worked primarily in the live sector and the televised live sector. That's been my main speciality. So you work with artists, but you don't work for them. The nicest live show I ever worked on was it was in 1999. It was the tribute to Linda McCartney. It was called Here, There and Everywhere, a tribute to Linda. It was at Royal Albert Hall. And I think because Paul he wasn't behind it. Actually, Linda's friends put it together. So it was Chrissy Hind, and Helen Terry, who was the wonderful vocalist on some of Culture Club's tracks, who was now a TV producer. A small gang of them got together to organise this tribute. And I think because Paul was behind it, there were no egos. So to work on it was just joyous, because all the artists who performed were just completely normal. There was no diva, nothing. Everyone just went, let's get on with it. And it raised money because obviously Linda was a staunch vegetarian, so it raised money for an animal sanctuary down in Sussex. It raised a lot of money for that. And it was a really nice show to work on. And one of the bands I like personally is Crowded House. So it was, and then Neil Finn was performing on that. Right, yeah. And it was really nice. I was really pleased to be able to work with Neil Finn, because I just think he's so talented. But I've worked with McCartney a few times, and Mr. Sir McCartney, Sir Paul, shouldn't call him McCartney, should I? Sir Paul, and he's just got that wealth of both Beatles songs and his own material. It's just what a vault of amazing songs to work from, and he's done a couple of well, he did an amazing Glastonbury performance. And he also worked with Africa Express, which was lovely for me. So we did a show very close to my flat in King's Cross in London as part of the Cultural Olympics in 2012 in Granary Square behind the train station, which has all been redeveloped now. And that was a great show. Africa Express has always been very interesting. Yeah. I never thought I'd be going to the Tate Modern to watch a classical contemporary piece called In C by Terry Riley and walk out going, that's one of the best things I've ever heard and seen in my life. I've got to say I was stunned how much I enjoys it, because classical contemporary has never been quite my thing.
Being a punk, no.
You know, and it was amazing, amazing. Particularly the musicians from Mali who interpreted it, just did such a fantastic job. Yeah. You can find it online probably. It's worth a listen.
Yeah, definitely. We'll put it in the show notes. I was looking at you because when I knew you were coming on, I was looking at your website. Are you all the articles on there? Is that you behind all them?
Not all of them, no.
Right.
I'm the editor of Music Law Updates. I'd say I write about 75% of them, but I have guest writers, people in the industry, people who training now. A couple of students, postgraduate students, write for me.
Did you do the one, the article about Avenged Sevenfold and their current, the band Avenged Sevenfold?
Yes, I did.
Current, that's similar to the one that 30 Seconds to Mars had a few years ago. Have you seen that documentary?
Yes.
Is that a similar sort? Sort of situation?
Well, disputes with record labels are always very complex.
But this 7-year thing.
Yeah, it's the California Labor Code,
yeah.
Which says you can't be tied to an employer for more than 7 years, and the record labels have repeatedly arranged to have exceptions to that written into law, but
because they're reviewing another album, basically, that's what they.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I mean, delivered it.
Record labels sign exclusive long-term recording agreements. That underpins their business model, and they can be remarkably unfair. I mean, the biggest case ever was in the same vein was George Michael,
right?
Who when he was in Wham, signed a 10-album deal with Sony when he was 18, for terrible royalties.
Oh, right.
It was renegotiated. It was renegotiated a couple of times. It got better.
Although they're usually more rewarding up front, but poor.
Yes, well, that's the thing. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you get £100,000 advance, all artists think they're well off. I used to avoid artists saying, "Really, the advance is irrelevant. It's your royalty."
But as someone who's 18 years old,
no, exactly. They never think of that. They never do. And I can't tell you who it was. I did have a conversation where the £100,000 advance the deal was much better, and the £200,000 advance was dreadful. And of course they went for £200,000 advance. And I was saying, this is the worst deal. You will criticise me and blame me in 4 years or 3 years' time when you work out this is a poor deal, which was.
And you spent all your money.
Yeah, all your money's gone. But no, recording agreements they are restrictive. You are solely tied to one record label. You cannot go and record for someone else. And if you do, and if you're like, one of these bands who've tried to do that, expect illegal action.
Yeah, those deals sound a bit outdated now.
They might be, but they still underpin.
Well, yeah. I mean, for the bands, I suppose in terms of the bands, there doesn't seem any longevity in it anymore.
You remember the Darkness. The Darkness are actually quite a bright band, and they actually, I think, as far as I understand it, I've never read their deals, but they paid their own first album and then licensed it to a record label, which means they actually retain ownership. Yeah. Which is much more sensible. The artist I mentioned earlier, Anne Clark, we licensed all her new albums to a German label on a 10-year basis. And I said, you can always come back to us after 10 years and we can look at it, and if we're all working well together and everyone's making money, undoubtedly we keep the deal with you. But if you, for example, you've put it in your archive and stopped selling it, don't be surprised when we say, that's it, we're walking away. We're going to go and do something else with somebody else.
Because a lot of it's about, like, for bands coming up, it's about what kind of advice does someone give you along the way? So you get good bad advice and you get bad advice.
I mean, obviously, a lot of established bands now signed exclusive recording agreements, let's say 20 years ago, when downloads were never thought about, let alone streaming. And they are not just vague, they're silent on those issues, which, of course, now are major sources of income. 360-degree deals, which were all the vogue, let's say 5 or maybe 7 years ago, and people signed them. And now regretting it, going, why would we sign that as the industry shifts again?
sounds terrifying as an artist to give away a percentage of everything you earn.
Yes, it sounds terrifying. It sounds terrifying to me as well.
But not just your music, which you used to give in, but like your merch, which like it's your merch, it's your.
I know it's your name, it's your efforts. I mean, but some managers. I mean, the most famous was Colonel Parker, who was Elvis's manager, asked for 50%.
Yeah.
So even once the record labels had their share, large share, and the music publishers had their not so large share, or your merchandisers taken their share, and the live promoters, whatever you've got left at the end, your manager's going to have half of. Not managers. Obviously, most managers don't take half.
Yeah.
But I've done a negotiation before where the opening offer was it's half, or we're not interested in the act. And that was, by the way, they weren't bluffing.
Wow.
That was it. He was a very established manager who worked with boy bands and girls bands.
Right.
And he said, no, I take half because I'm good at what I do. Right, okay. Any room for a note? There's no room. If you want to negotiate, I won't negotiate. You just walk away. Okay. There you go.
You must have had some success with it then.
No, that act fired me basically, and not nastily, and said, "We're going to sign." I said, "Well, I can't advise you." And they said, "Well, we're going to sign it."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, sign it, but my advice is don't sign it."
Yeah. But that the event 30 Seconds to Mars documentary I thought was quite fascinating because that was the first time I'd ever really heard of anything like that.
In this country, we don't have that sort of provision in our legal system. What we do have is a thing called restraint of trade, or unfair or unreasonable restraint of trade, which is the way judges have intervened into contracts to allow certain deals to be unscrambled. In fact, George Michael couldn't use it because he'd renegotiated his deal twice, and the second time he'd taken specific legal advice on renegotiating. What judges will do is look at, not just musicians, by the way, there was a Wayne Rooney case about this as well, when he signed a contract with a sports management agency when I think he was 17. But judges will look at where there's been an inequality of bargaining power between a great big record label offering a big carrot and inequality of bargaining power where there's been a deal done which is so unfair that the courts feel they should intervene and in effect either void it, which means it never existed, although quite often they'll rewrite it to make it more reasonable. So Elton John went to court to have his management deal, which included, it was actually an original 360-degree deal.
Right.
So,
has that happened many times?
Well, yes, because his manager advised him to sign a deal with his manager's record label, his then manager's record label, and his then manager's publishing company.
Right.
So he was signed to the manager and the manager's label and the manager's publishing company, which in those days is where all your money came from.
Yeah.
And there the court said it's a clear conflict of interest, we're going to intervene. And they did. And they rewrote it, in effect.
It's such a minefield out there, isn't it?
There's been you remember Frankie Goes to Hollywood?
Yeah.
They went to court to have their deal looked at. The Stone Roses went to court to have their deals looked at. A host of artists have had it done. But in this country, it's been through unreasonable restraint of trade, rather than America, more recently, have been these, first of all, the California Labor Code, but the other thing they're now starting to use, which is a different area of law, it's to do with copyright law, is there's also a reversion of copyright right in American law.
Right.
So you can reclaim your copyright on notice. I'm going to forget what it is. I think it's after 30 years. I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't. So a large number of artists are now starting to try and reclaim both their songs and their sound recordings because they're established artists and they might as well own it themselves and then license that rather than assign it to someone, which means you transfer ownership, license it for shorter periods.
Yeah.
For a better royalty.
It makes sense.
Or another big advance.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of the band Anvil and their terrible...
Yes. Oh, gosh, yes. I've watched that documentary as well.
Yeah, that was very interesting, wasn't
it's very interesting. It's almost a sad documentary. Although it did do them some good.
Well, I mean, it has revamped them now. They still tour all over the world. But that's what I was coming back to about bad advice. Bad business advice. Because it could have been, they used the big four, Metallica, Anthrax, Megadeth, and Slayer. It could have been the big five.
Big five, yeah, I know.
But they just lost it's bad advice, and they signed a bad deal, and it just went downhill from there.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
They didn't have the money. The money wasn't there for the recordings, which let everything else down, and it just...
I mean, it's not always bad advice as such. I business managed a metal band called Praying Mantis, Well, who started off at New Wave of British Heavy Metal, did all the right things, played with Iron Maiden, toured, did the big festivals, but whereas, Maiden was stratospheric, they just sort of plateaued and it didn't work. In fact, I worked with them later on in their career where they'd sort of reformed and discovered they had a huge market in Southeast Asia, particularly Japan.
Yeah.
And last I knew, they were still going and still working. But yeah, it's bad advice can be, well, it's a killer, know. But sometimes artists kill their own careers, so it's not always. You can't always blame the manager or blame the record label or blame the music publisher. Sometimes it's just the artists that are difficult to work with.
That's true. Yeah, it's about reputation and everything as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, like, do you think there'll ever be a shift in, like, say, Spotify, where the revenue that the artist gets, after it's been dished out to everybody else, will creep up? So they'll
Spotify,
eventually,
Streaming
in general.
Streaming is already becoming a big chunk of
because that many people are doing it. Surely it's more financially viable for everybody, including the bottom of the pile, the artist.
Yeah, they are bottom of the pile. Yeah.
Do you think that will increase where it's a bit more of a valid revenue stream?
The record labels in particular, and there's a number of arguments going on. The record labels are saying that the likes of YouTube aren't paying enough because of the value gap, and which I think is completely true.
Yeah, I do as well.
However, the music publishers are saying that's true. But of what is paid out, the record labels are taking an unfair share, which I also agree with. Yeah. Then I go further and say, well, even if that was all, and it was rectified, what's being paid over to the artist is far too small a share of the pie. And all this ever is about is how you cut the pie up.
Exactly.
The only problem was, particularly when there was rampant piracy, was the pie was so small because no one was paying for the pies. They were shoplifting, basically.
Yeah.
Now the pie is mostly being paid for again. Some aren't paying, so YouTube traditionally have been very poor at paying, or not paying at all. They're hiding behind what are called safe harbour laws. Yeah. Now they're paying a bit. They'll probably pay more in the future, certainly in Europe, as the European Commission start to look at this value gap, and say, actually, it is real, actually. We protected the tech companies probably a bit too much. Of course, in America, there is no right, traditionally, to collect for recorded music performance on radio. So unlike they don't have the equivalent of what's called PPL. PPL. Okay, they don't have the equivalent over there. Digital stations have to pay, and satellite stations have to pay, but traditional broadcasting stations don't pay to play recorded music, so they don't pay what we call needle time.
Right. That's interesting.
Big argument. Another big argument. There are many, but over time, I guess the artists will keep chipping away and try and get a fair share of the pie. On their behalf, of course, the record labels are already fighting to get what they perceive to be a bigger share of the pie, a fairer share of the pie, as are music publishers on behalf of songwriters.
But at the end of the day, the platform, as it is, there is no platform without the artist.
Well, I know, yeah. Which is why a few, like the Taylor Swift, say, right, I'll just withdraw my music.
I'll try and set my own platform.
Oh, well, yeah, that's you need everybody on a platform. It's a really complex negotiation because the most efficient way of licensing is through collection societies, the likes of PRS and PPL, or ASCAP and BMI in America. But the record labels also know because particularly the three big ones, three majors, know that they're very powerful. So they often say, well, we want to withdraw our rights and negotiate on our own. And then the likes of Spotify say, but it's a nightmare to try and set up a service. We've got to negotiate with not only you, but all the independent labels and collection societies in every country of the world we want to deal with. It becomes almost impossible to set up a business.
Yeah, because aren't Spotify being sued by more? There's people, I can't remember what it was.
Songwriters, yes. That's about mechanicals in America. Yes. That's really that is so complex. The mechanical, first of all, was an argument: should the mechanical right, which is the limited reproduction right, even be applied to streaming?
Because it's like, is it a download? Is it?
What is it? Yeah, what is it in legal theory? You know what? It's going to go to court, and a judge will decide what it is.
And he isn't the best person to decide.
No, in legal theory, he or she probably is, but in reality, probably not. No. I mean, we're lucky over here because MCPS and PRS are now combined into one. Yeah. So but in America, they're not combined.
That's quick. Because in a way, like, I feel sorry for Spotify because
I feel a bit. There is no global repertoire database for either songs or sound recordings, and that is appalling. that actually the record labels and the music publishers haven't. They did try. The music publishers did try, and it fizzled out. So there is no, there's no one-stop shop, at least to find out who wrote something or who recorded something. They don't exist. And who owns it? Yeah. So there's, the record labels saying, well, we want to get paid. The music publishers, we got paid. And right, Spotify saying, yeah, but we don't know who to pay sometimes.
Exactly.
We don't actually know who to pay.
We don't want to.
No,
how do we know?
Actually, they don't want to, but that's how they do. But how do we go about doing this?
Yeah, it's just seems so much like today. It's so much more complicated than
it is.
Like even 20 years ago.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's a global market. As soon as the internet started, you realise no longer really could territorial markets. So they still do survive, but every year they're eroded away further and further. Because everything's global now.
I feel like those last few bands who just got in before and had, sold a couple of million albums just before, like, I don't know, 98, 99, 2000, started to just drop off. I mean, but they feel lucky.
Probably, and yet, well, you say that, but they probably signed deals which perhaps they regret now as well.
Maybe.
Whereas younger artists who are coming through now, all the grime artists who control their own catalogue, their own mode and method of distribution, perhaps they're the clever ones.
Maybe. So I just meant, like, some of those artists who just got in before that, because of those so many few avenues to get like media, like the magazines or radio or TV. Obviously now there's the internet, but before that it was a lot easier and simpler. And then after that it was like, it's just like it's opened up. I
mean, being a manager now, I read a very interesting interview recently with is it called? Oh, I forgot his name. Ed Sheeran's manager, and I know because I worked with Adele at the last Glastonbury when Adele headlined, and they are just a modern manager's role is so complex. It's so personal still, but it's so complex. What you have to deal with nowadays, and you do have to be vigilant and look at what your record label's accounting looks like and what your publisher's accounting looks like. But the old days, we'll do a 20-day tour of the UK, and we might be lucky if we get to America. Nah. It's global tour. It's global tours now. Everything is global. Yeah. If you want to be a superstar artist, you have to be global. And you're dealing with, markets which you may have no understanding of at all, and not because you're an idiot, because why would you know about the Brazilian live market? Yeah. And so you're relying on a lot of people you have to work with, like your agent, your booking agent. You have to work with so closely nowadays, and that's right. And that's why these people do have specialised roles, and why. To ignore them is foolish, and that's why you have to pay them. But one of the reasons Glastonbury does so well, particularly for the superstar acts, because they know if they come to the United Kingdom, if they only do Glastonbury, they'll get amazing profile out of it. Yeah. So I'm not saying Beyonce doesn't do other stuff, but when a Beyonce looks at what they're going to do, their first thing is, right, can we base a UK tour? Or do we need to base a UK tour? But can we do Glastonbury?
Do we just do Glastonbury?
Well, a lot of the time, because you're getting.
It's like a for international artists, it's a shop window. For
it's
the
everything,
UK, isn't it?
It's everything on one. It's one day.
Yeah,
everything on one day.
If you do that, if you nail that performance,
it's not everything. It's not the be all and end all.
No, but
if you nail it, if you nail it, it's a one. You should use shop window.
Some serious PR comes from
that. It's serious PR. So
I'm sure it's part of everyone's plan. It's up there to let's get Glastonbury.
I love it. I love hearing interviews where people say, we just really want to do Glastonbury.
Yeah, I bet.
I know, it's good. It's flattering.
Yeah, but it's amazing. When did you notice a time when Glastonbury really stepped up?
Michael always blames me for all the people getting in free. It was 94, first year of TV.
It really became like a household name.
It already was a household name. It was but the TV has. Oh, there was already radio, of course. Radio 1 were already heavily involved with the festival, but it did take it. I mean, not blowing my own trumpet, but it took it to a new level. Yeah. We had a number of. This year we had Jeremy Corbyn at the festival, who was incredibly popular. Oh. And the thing is, though, people now we've always been a very open to all ideas, and everybody is welcome. But what you do get now as well is those who've only watched it on TV. So when the BBC put out some of Jeremy Corbyn speaking, because it was a huge news event, we got furious letters from people saying Glastonbury shouldn't be political. And it's like, well, what do you mean shouldn't be political? It's always been it's always been political. It was counterculture. But we supported CND, or I wasn't involved, but Michael supported CND in the 80s because he thought it was one of the biggest threats to the world was the risk of rather it is now again, by the way, risk of nuclear war. Yeah. And now we support Greenpeace and Oxfam and WarTrade because Michael believes they're important issues. But I can't speak for him. But clearly we've had things like Drop the Debt at Glastonbury, and we've had campaign groups like the White Ribbon Group. We've had lots of things going on, and we always have done. And now apparently some people think that politics has no place. We have a whole stage called the Left Field, run by Billy Bragg, where people debate political issues of the day. So anyway, that's what you get from TV as well, though. It's not all wonderful. You get, Furious of Tunbridge Wells writing to you saying it's shocking that we dirty our hands with politics in some way.
Has the location ever altered slightly? Has it always been exactly the same place?
It's always been based around Worthy Farm.
Yeah, it's one of the only most famous farms in the world.
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah, I mean, it probably is.
I always wonder what it looks like the rest of the year.
It just looks like a farm. I mean, it's cleaned by hand.
Right.
So we have, I think it's 3,000 litter pickers who do shifts over the weekend or work they get extra money. They get free ticket for working over the weekend. And they do 3 shifts. I think it's 3 shifts. I can't quote myself on that. That's my understanding. As a lawyer, I must say, place no reliance on whatever I say. It's all rubbish. But that's my understanding. And it's people like doing it, but people do stay behind as well and clean the site by. And in mud years, it's a really hard job because things obviously sink down.
Especially if it's a wet one.
Yeah, if it's wet, it's muddy. Everything gets. But the soil on the farm is unbelievably fertile. It seems to recover so fast. It just seems to within sort of 2 or 3 months it's really green again. It's like, well, how did that happen? And the only structure that really remains is the skeleton of the pyramid stage remains in place.
Okay.
The first year I ever did Glastonbury, the pyramid stage burnt down about 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and I had to ring up the Channel 4 commission editor, who thought I was playing a joke on him. He is called Valdemir Januszak, who's a really nice guy actually now, and he's an art critic now, and he does TV programs about art. But he was then the music editor for Channel 4, and I had to ring up and say, Valdemar, the pyramid stage is burnt down. He went, I'll paraphrase, basically, you're winding me up. Stop being stupid. No, really, it'll be on your news service in about 2 hours' time. Oh, my God. What are we going to do? I said, well, we're going to get another stage, unfortunately. And then we had to rebuild it, and we had the new pyramid. Michael used to use it to store wood in particular and straw underneath it. It was classified as an agricultural building. And unfortunately, it caught fire.
Oh, right.
So it was a proper fire. Wow. There you go.
I bet that went up quickly.
Yay! Yeah, there you go.
So, in a typical year when Glastonbury is on, how many months out of the year do you have to?
I work all year round for the festival.
Okay.
Even now, I'm doing stuff for Glastonbury.
So it never ends.
It never ends. I say I'm having a year off. I am trying to cut down what I'm doing. One of the things one of my parts of my role is clip licensing. We have a lot of TV stations always want to use clips of it's always based around Glastonbury. We have great footage.
Yeah.
So
even like from years gone by, they're still all
Yeah. I mean, for many years, I would be licensing Robbie Williams doing Angels. It's probably the clip I've licensed the most, followed quickly by Travis doing Why Does It Always Rain on Me? As it started raining. But it honestly did. It honestly started raining as I started singing. It's one of those pieces of perfect timing you could never repeat, and it never. Yeah. If you tried to make it work, I looked at the forecast and said, "Do it at 3:15." Of course, it wouldn't have rained, but it did it, and it's a great song, obviously.
Yeah. I never thought about that, the clips thing.
No, it's
in this day and age with viral and all that stuff.
Yeah, but people also want for documentaries, for TV programs. Yeah. They want, and most artists, almost all artists who come to Glastonbury, they'll deliver a fantastic performance. Yeah. They just will, and so
people will want bits and pieces of that, won't they?
Yeah.
Has there ever been a documentary about Glastonbury?
Yeah, there've been a number of documentaries, but there've been 2 films. So Julian Temple has directed 2 films, and obviously with our blessing and with our cooperation, both produced with the BBC, but not with the BBC. We work with the BBC Films. So they're sort of important.
Remember what they were called?
First one was called Glastonbury, and the second one I think it was called Glastopia or After Hours. It had a couple of names.
Right. Well,
and there was an original film made in, I always get this wrong, with David Putnam and Nick Rogue make, I think in 1971, which you will see clips of sometimes, and it was the hippies basically, and it was David Bowie, and it was of its time. It was the hippies on Michael's farm, paying a pound to get in, but most of them didn't. And they bought horses and motorbikes and kids and dogs.
Yeah.
And it was what it was in 1970. I think it was 71. Oh God, I should know this.
Oh, I'm gonna have to watch that. That sounds interesting.
It's fantastic.
See how much it's changed since then.
Well, it's still Worthy Farm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what it is.
Do you have any work with any other festivals?
No, only Yourope. I don't work for any other festival directly, and neither do I want to.
Okay.
And yes, I have been. And yes, I have been asked many times.
I thought you would have been.
But if you work for the best festival in the world, which I still think, in my opinion,
else can you go?
Why would I work for another festival?
You've got enough work on with that. So
yeah, I mean, I'm proud to work with Europe, which is a forward-looking.
I'm not familiar with that. So tell us about that.
It's the European Festival Association. It's got about 90 members now. So
where's the festival held?
No, it's a festival association.
Oh, I see. Right.
Sorry, Europe. It's the festival association I mentioned earlier. So I work with them, and I'm really proud to work with them. And they are campaigning. At the moment, they're campaigning on Take a Stand, fighting against inequality, and other issues. They also have a number of groups. They have a very, very proactive health and safety group called the Yes Group. Boringly, as a lawyer, I work with them on contracts, standardising contracts, because believe you me, we can all sit there and argue booking agents' contracts in standard terms till the cows come home. But normally, most of it can be solved by standard terms agreed in advance, which apply to sort of all the Agents Act at that festival, or indeed at that Trade Associations festival. So I work on lots. The other big thing at the moment is ticketing. Secondary ticketing in particular, which is a nightmare issue.
That was the other thing I was going to talk to you about.
Did you? Well, obviously...
controversial.
It is controversial. Well, it's not. It isn't. In fact, at Glastonbury, we took practical steps to stop people touting our tickets, which are 99.9% effective.
Such as?
Registration and photo ID. However, when we first launched it, we had to work really hard with our audience, a lot of who do come from counterculture, and when you say, and by the way, you have to bring ID, and they go, well, I'm coming to a festival, the last thing I want to do is bring ID. Yeah. And so you have to explain and talk them through and say, well, the thing is...
This is why we're doing it.
The reason we're doing it is so we can sell tickets for whatever price, £210, and that they're not all bought by bots and resold. Did you see that
thing recently with the Foo Fighters?
When they turn people away,
yeah,
that's a major step. That's a really high risk thing to do. We know it's high risk, 'cause I've seen other artists do it, and Alicia Keys did it and got about 3 or 4 years ago at Royal Albert Hall and got a huge amount of negative flack. But the Foo said, but we've told everybody, like Ed Sheeran says the same thing. If you buy this from somebody else who's not whoever their ticket agent, their primary, then we've said we will cancel them, and we can see them. If we see them on Viagogo, we'll cancel them.
Yeah.
Whatever they tell you, we will cancel them. And they did. I mean, they seemed to now that the flack was a lot less. Like when I first saw it announced, like overnight, it was like Foos turn away hundreds.
Yeah.
Like, oh, have you? Oh, that can't be good. And then I read it, and actually, I think they managed it very well.
It's setting a precedent for what needs to happen.
Yeah, what needs to happen.
It's
Yeah,
the way it
and
should be.
But we've always said you can't, if you turn up at our gate, and it's not you on the photo.
Yeah.
Don't expect to get in.
But these people who are complaining, they will be the ones who would also complain when they couldn't get a ticket. But the only ones they could get were offered 3 times the price online. So they're doing it for their benefit, really.
Yeah, I mean, in my own personal view, if you buy a ticket from Viagogo, you start raving mad.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, I don't even think they're part of the business I work in. They are just, to me, parasites.
There's been a lot of fights and to and throws with artists and ticket companies.
There
years,
have,
I
and
remember
it's
Pearl Jam a few years ago. They were fighting for not that, but they were fighting for the right to lower the ticket prices to make them more affordable, because they were just the prices were getting put up. Well, and they had nothing to do with the decision.
Prices have gone up, to be honest. I mean, live is expensive.
Yeah.
It's expensive to do, you know.
But do you think that's partly anything to do with that going up so much? Has anything to do with the lack of record sales? Do you think it's related at all? Because that loss of revenue has got to be offset somewhere.
Not directly, because economics doesn't work like that.
I just meant just the fact that it's gone up so quickly, so quickly.
No, it's because it's a different market, which will stand.
But I just thought if bands were still making millions from record sales, would the ticket sales be so high?
That's because I'm a cynic.
Well, somebody's got to be.
As much as why I say I think artists have a hard time, it is actually funny, although it is artists who drive live ticket prices normally.
I mean, people complain.
Going up, but
like AC/DC was, you're talking 100 quid.
Back to black. Yeah, huge amount. I mean, we've all changed. Live has become. That's the other annoying thing, that people won't pay 10 quid for a download of an album, and yet they'll quite happily pay a secondary ticketer or a tout 200 quid for a live experience. Why? Because we all now love live experiences. People do. I understand that. I'm delighted. I work in that sector primarily. But it seems a bit bizarre. You won't pay for the album. You'll pirate the album, but you'll go to a tout.
Through the nose
yeah,
to go and see
you'll go to a tout to see a live show.
But it's, I mean, I just see it as that's the price. They've put the prices up. It sells out, so obviously that's the right price.
Yeah. Look at the Fire Festival, the one that never happened. Well, the one that didn't happen in the Bahamas, where it appeared that affluent, well-educated young people in America, in particular, were quite happy to pay $1,000 for a backstage VIP, so-called, or artist access ticket. It's like, why? Don't you realise that's madness? But they all did it anyway. Not everyone could be a VIP.
No.
If all the audience is VIPs, no one's a VIP.
No
I'm sorry,
that's true, yeah.
Apparently it doesn't work anymore like that. No. Everyone wants to be a VIP.
But the Guns N' Roses did their tour recently. Their tickets were like 100 quid.
Yeah.
I paid 90 something. I'm seeing Metallica in October.
Yeah.
But I just think these older bands, that's the price it is these days, and you might never get to see them again, though.
You might. No, I know.
So I think you should just, if you can, just do it.
Do it. There you go.
That's the way it is these days.
You see, you're not part of the solution. You're part of the problem, Mark.
Yeah.
But I understand why. And we have at Glastonbury something like, I think last time I looked, although we cull our database, much to the horror of people I tell who work in like.
What do you mean by that?
We delete everybody unless they proactively want to stay on.
So
our registration, because you have to be registered to get a Glastonbury ticket.
Right.
If you don't tell us you want to stay on it, we'll delete you.
Right. Okay.
Because that's right, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you give people a chance to get in. And
and also it protects people's personal privacy and their personal data.
Yeah. True.
But people who work, well, you do what? You delete people. Yeah, they have to proactively stay in. Really? Yep.
I think that's
Because because we think it's right. We think it's what our audience would expect us to do. But most businesses don't do that. So I mean, they should do it probably under the data protection laws.
How long have you done that for?
Ever since we had a database.
Right.
We also don't market to them either.
Right. Spam them in the meantime.
We don't spam them. We don't spam them.
Yeah.
We're very strict about all that.
No.
But
that's part of your reputation, I suppose.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's important. But that's what sets you apart as well from other people. Because
Thank you.
Do you go to many other festivals?
Yeah.
Which other festivals?
Well, I've been to. I didn't go to any last year. But I mean, I've been to more recently. Exit.
Okay.
I normally go to the Reeperbahn Festival, which is a city-based festival in Germany. I always try and go to Kendall Calling.
Oh, yep.
Very good.
It's doing very well, isn't it?
doing very well. And now, and as a person who now lives in Cumbria, I'm not sure I'm listening to my own accent. Am I Cumbrian? Well, that's a debatable point.
How long have you lived in Cumbria for now?
11 years.
There you go. You're getting there.
And apart from being called Mara and saying, well, no, I get called Mara. I get called Mara now. I hosted a fundraiser in Egremont last year and got called Mara a lot. So I hosted a show at the Egremont Town Hall where they held the crab fair, the gurning competition.
Oh, right,
So it was quite weird being backstage. It was a charity fundraiser. Yeah. Funny enough, for a charity in Penrith called the Bridgeway, which is for victims of sexual abuse, and also the firefighters charity. So I do all sorts of strange things now. I'm chairman of Keswick Football Club.
Yeah, how did that come about?
I don't know. Yeah.
Did you feel your workload wasn't quite enough, so you thought, take something else on?
Last man standing, I discovered in hindsight.
So does that take up much of your time on the football club?
More than I ever thought it would do, yeah. I was at the under-12s this morning just watching the game.
Right.
Yeah. My hobby is photography, and it sort of came about through that.
Okay.
So I've always liked football.
Yeah.
When I got to Keswick, I thought, oh, it's a local club. So I started going to watch them, take the dog down there, and I've always done that. So for 11 years I've been watching Keswick play, and they're a good team. And then sort of 3 years ago, or just under 3 years, I started doing photography, and then it all sort of spiraled madly out of control. So I was at Frenchfield in Penrith yesterday.
Right.
Well, first of all I was at Cockermouth, photographing for the Cumberland League.
Right.
Smurfit Kappa Cumberland County League. And then I came over. I stopped off at Braithwaite for 20 minutes and did Braithwaite. It's another local teams. Got a few mates there against Appleby, and then continued my trajectory for a quick second half dash around 3 games in Frenchfield, and then the second half of Penrith against. I can't pronounce most of these places. You know, for many years I called Trapinna Torpinhow in my wonderful. I remember talking about Grey Southern once, and someone said, "Where Grey Southern?" I was going to go Grey Southern. I said, "Grey Soon." Oh, that's what you call it, is it? There are many places in Cumbria I have no idea I was talking about so wrongly until people turn around and say, "No, it's Ben." No.
Well, it's still our English language. It's all over the place, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's like Broome down the road, which is
Bruff.
spelled not Broome, Brougham. Browgham.
Oh, Browham, yes. Is that what it's called?
Broome.
See, I know it is. I know it is, yeah.
How is that?
You're
How's
right.
that being now? Do we pronounce it Broome? That just doesn't make any sense.
No idea. I have no idea, but they do. Well, my next door neighbour is Keswick born and bred, and I know when I talk to him, because I can hear him talking to his mates. He's retired, but I can talk to his mates. He tones his accent down when he talks to me. I know he does. And it's nice of him, but it's like, oh, Nick, you're But I can't understand him when he's in full flow. And, I mean, particularly when the West Cumbrian accent is so different.
Well, yeah.
Where we had roofers in, and they were from Maryport, I think. And it's just different. But also, as long as you put the word, the slight expression, at the end of every sentence.
Yeah. It's almost like they're asking you a question at the end
of
every
sentence.
No, I know.
It is.
It's like,
you're
asking me a question or you telling me something?
I know. But I can't do the accent at all. So I just carry on.
It's probably for the best.
Yeah, I feel it's for the best, yeah.
So who is your football team where you're from?
Well, there isn't one. I don't support my local team from Kent. I support Leeds United.
How's that going?
There you go. I've always supported Leeds.
Is that from the Billy Bremner days?
Yeah, absolutely. Alan Clark, Pete Lorimer, Norman Hunter bites your legs.
Was there someone in your family supported them?
No one.
You just went Leeds?
Leeds.
Okay.
I just picked them. They were doing very well. They had that classic cup final replay against Chelsea, which would have been much more sense to support Chelsea or Arsenal, or Tottenham, because at least they're in London, and I grew up in Canterbury, 60 miles from London. Nope. I picked the nastiest, hardest, most bad-tempered, but successful team at that time. I could. Well, they weren't the most successful, but they were one of, alongside United and Liverpool and Chelsea.
You used to go and watch them?
I haven't for a long time. The last time I saw them was, and this is many, many years ago, was at Arsenal in the Arsenal end. because my mate was an Arsenal apprentice, and he knew I supported them. He said, "Oh, do you want to come on?" Yeah. And I didn't think it through.
Sat on the away end, or the home end.
Yeah, in some ways, thank God we lost 2-1. Yeah. But we went 1-0 up, and I had to be. That's. For those listening without watching won't know.
A polite clap.
Marc had to restrain me from jumping up, and I mean physically go no. I went yes, and I did this at quite polite. It was a good goal. I can't remember who scored. It was a good goal. But yeah, I support Leeds, and when I got to university, I tried to stop because it was illogical. And I realised in those days, for those of you who don't know about what happened in the old days, it was no digital. There was radio, obviously. Yeah. But you bought a newspaper. You bought the Evening Standard, and they'd overprint the earlier editions with the results on the back page. Right. They left there'd be a blank strip, which was overprinted. And I realised I tried to support West Ham. I tried to support Crystal Palace. I tried to support Crystal Palace because my granddad supported Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
No interest in Crystal Palace. Tried to support West Ham. I do like West Ham. But I realised I was always looking at the Leeds score first.
Yeah. So that's
your
team.
Thought, do you know what? That's my team. And you can't not support a team.
No.
I mean, it's been difficult with Leeds United recently.
Yeah.
We had a chairman who hired Massimo Cellini, who was a very, very, very interfering, difficult man. But he's gone.
I remember the time when, I think it was 2003, when you put all your eggs in one basket you signed some players with some pretty big wages
on higher purchase agreements.
Yeah, and banking on the fact that you were going to qualify for the Champions League, which you didn't, and then it just went the other way.
I'm not going to go too bad because this is a permanent recording, but yes, our chairman at the time is a man I have no time for at all, and it was hard, and we basically went bankrupt. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of similarities to the music industry as well, with things like that. With the wages. I remember, I don't know if you ever saw that documentary that Alan Sugar did, probably about 10 years ago, where he interviewed players, managers, chairmen, and agents. And he talked to them all, he asked them all the questions that people have been asking. None of them ever answered the questions properly, like politicians. But it came down to the fact, the conclusion that when Sky came in with all the TV money, and they said, every year we're going to give you such and such, and it's going to keep going up, the FA should have stepped in and said, but you can only spend a certain percentage of it on wages.
Now belatedly try and do. But the power shift has already gone.
But because they didn't do that.
The clubs are still powerful, but the players' agents now
they're all power.
Huge power.
Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, although funny you mentioned Alan Sugar, because Alan Sugar's an interesting character. Because another part, going back to law again, what I do, he is an important part. When I used to teach law, I would use his case about he bought a case when he was labelled a miser by a newspaper when he was chairman of Tottenham.
Right.
And he said, I wasn't a miser. Yeah.
What's a miser?
A miser, someone who... You know what a miser is?
No, I'm not familiar with that term.
Oh, well, this is not going to work. This is not going to edit this bit out, all right? But is miser someone who parsimonious, doesn't spend their money generously, mean. And he was mean when he was chairman of
tight ass
Tottenham. Yeah, tight ass. Yeah, tight ass. Yeah, tight. And he said, "Well, I wasn't." Yeah, you were. Yeah. That's why, and that's why Tottenham didn't do so well. He went, and he proved in court. And they said, "That's just our opinion." They went. He said, "No, it wasn't. You said that publicly. That is defamatory.
Right.
You defamed me by calling me a miser."
Right.
And they said, "No, it was a fair comment." He went, "No, it wasn't." And then he proved how much he'd lost or invested in Tottenham, and it was a lot of money. But there you go.
He's an interesting guy. But the wages in football and
they are obviously the club I'm chairman of is nothing like that.
No.
But when you get to non-league proper step, as soon as you get to sort of step, which is sort of conference, you get obviously league. Everyone in the Premiership gets vast. Well, not everyone. Everyone. There's a quick drop off from the superstar salaries, but they're still decent.
Yeah.
So you go through, Premiership, Championship, down to 1 and 2, and then you get to, it's not Vanarama now, is it? Or is it Vanarama?
Yeah, it's Vanarama.
It's Vanarama, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah. Vanarama.
Yeah.
And then Evo sticks, and then down to sort of, then you start getting down.
But the gap from the top to the bottom is just...
It's enormous. It's huge.
And it's getting bigger. And
there's
talk of the big clubs wanting more of the TV rights because they're the big clubs.
Yeah, I know.
And that's just going to make the rich richer and the poorer poorer. The
I
gap's
know.
just going to get
I know.
bigger.
It's difficult. And it is.
They have got a point. Like, they do drive all the foreign...
They do.
But overall, I don't think it's good for the game.
It's not good for the game. It's a very... I mean, if I was chairman of a football club, you also look at the... there are scouts who'll look down to every age group.
Yeah.
And yet, and I did do some looking at it, I said, if you're picked up into an academy, or let's say you're picked up to an academy when you're 14, the chance of you still being in an academy by the time you're 16 is like 1 in 400. Mm. If you're there at 16, the chance of you then being still in a league club, let's say a league club, so Premiership, Championship 1 and 2, by the time you're 18, is another massive culling of, let's say, you've got a 0.05% chance.
Yeah.
And then even if you get into a league, Championship or Premiership club by the time you're 18, the chance of you playing professional football by the time, full-time professional football, by the time you're 22, another massive slicing. And weirdly, that's exactly the same as the music industry. Used to be.
Right.
So even if you got signed to a record label, signed, to be fair to record labels, who had given you an advance, you got a 1 in 10 chance of not being dropped. I don't know exactly, but 2 years later.
Yeah.
And getting the second album, another 1 in 10 chance. So, and that's from after you're signed, after the record labels and the music publishing companies have invested in you.
Yeah. Well, the landscape from back then has changed a lot as well in terms of, I don't think people saw being a band as like a genuine career sort of. No. There wasn't as many people doing it as like now. Anyone could do it because you can record in your bedroom.
That's right, which was how technology has changed that. But in the old days, you needed. But to be fair to the major record labels and the small record labels, the independents, they would invest. Whereas the reverse now is,
now record labels don't take chances anymore.
Nope, not because they're driven by us.
What they do now is they scoop up bands who've already done all the hard work themselves, who've already gotten to a certain level, and say, and then they swoop in and take, right, we'll take over from here, and we'll have a 360 deal and take a percentage of everything you earn.
Very. You're right. You're spot on. It's very difficult.
But it's just the way. That's just the way it is. You've got to adapt.
Yeah.
You've got to be, like I see some bands now. When an album comes out, they'll release a video for every song on the album and make it streamable and put it on YouTube because that's just, you've got to be out there. You might as well. To people, if you don't put it there, someone else will put it there.
Yeah.
So you might as well be under your terms.
Yeah.
But it's just there's so much. Yeah, like you were saying before, like a managers as well. There's so much more to think about now. It's such more of a. You've got to think of it as a business, I suppose, rather than just having a laugh.
I mean, equally, the rewards are, whether you're, Beyonce or Ronaldo, the rewards not just from the music, but the rewards from, although they don't particularly apply in this country, but from sponsorship, endorsement, and image rights are enormous.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only touched on the music side, but the rewards from...
Oh, yeah.
You spoke about merchandising. Obviously, I work on merchandising, and I talked about trademarks.
Yeah.
But, the different ways of how celebrities are rewarded have changed and changed and changed. It's not that new, but it's ever-changing. And, if you're a Beyonce or if you're a Wayne, I remember when, two ways you notice when it all goes wrong. Mm-hmm. And you suddenly see that actually a footballer might make $100,000 a week, but actually that's just out of the football. Yeah. That's their salary. Yeah. On top of that, they're making sponsorship and endorsement. They're making 10 million quid a year or 50 million quid a year. Same with music. You know, the major, and this is only it's at the top.
Certain level,
It's
top
the top
tier, isn't it? Yeah.
It's the top. It's the top tiny percentage. The David Beckhams, the Wayne Rooney's in football, the Beyoncés. But, you know, look at them. Look at what happened to U2 when they tried to shoehorn their last album onto, and it was terrible PR.
That was.
But but obviously they were going to get paid for it, and they must have thought overall that was the right thing to do. No.
I don't know. I just struggle to comprehend that they would think that was a good idea.
Well, there you go. No, I know. I do.
You would think they would have enough money where they wouldn't need to do something like
I know.
maybe as a PR, but
Yeah,
not for financial reasons.
No, I know.
When you've got that much money in the bank, you don't need to do things. How are we going to make more money? He's like, I don't think we really need to.
I'm going to do what you're doing now, just to change the pressure on my very sensitive, and quite attractive ears. I like to think. You can't see them. You can't comment. So it's good.
But it's just, that was bad. That didn't turn out well for them. I don't think PR wise.
Well,
I don't know.
no.
They'll have got a huge chunk of money from Apple, but
They will have done.
but
you know, endorsement is big, and some artists, go into it wholeheartedly and they grab it and they make some say no. But it's difficult. Again, going back to the festival I work for, Glastonbury. Why would we want to almost tarnish our name by going with someone we have no connection with? In fact, who Michael and Emily might think are completely against what they think.
yeah.
So it's a really
If you've got loads of different sponsors, it gets a bit more political then as well. In terms of
not all nice,
yeah,
Business is business.
the simpler you can keep it, the better, really.
Yeah.
But like in terms of artists these days, you've got to do it for the love of it. I hope people that era of getting into music to be rich and famous. Surely there's not many musicians actually. That's their motivation these days. Or do you think they're generally aware that there isn't that much, unless you get to that certain top tiers, that there isn't really that much money to be made?
I'm not sure they do it to get rich, but they certainly do it to get famous.
Yeah.
So,
but do they realise how hard it is?
Oh no, no, I'm sorry, but
That's
if you
why
look at X Factor and Britain's Got Talent and all the spin-offs and all the other ones, and it's like, wow, do you really think that's what happens when you get famous?
And a lot of them disappear anyway after all that. You've forgotten about.
Cruel.
Yeah, chewed up and spat out.
Sport's cruel. Music is cruel.
Yeah. You've got to have a tough mentality to be able to stay and.
You do.
True to your own convictions, I guess.
You do.
And not be easily led.
But that won't change. People will still pile in for all sorts of. I just think for all sorts of different reasons.
Yeah.
And there are those who just want to be talented musicians, but they get as damaged by the system as those who just want to be famous.
You need a business head.
As well.
You need these to survive. I think, not to prosper, just to survive.
But most people who come in haven't got that.
Yeah.
Which is why the music business has to work with artists to make it all work.
Yeah. I think you've got to be able to you've got to see the business side of it. You've got to address it and adapt to it. You can't just ignore it, because you're never going to survive, are you? You're never going to. It's part and parcel of it. And I just wonder if artists coming through these days truly realise how important that side of it is. Like your logo, your brand, all that side of it. Rather than, it's not just about the music anymore.
When I used to advise art, I did used to advise artists as a business manager. I always remember one of the most difficult conversations when a band's got no money or a little bit of money. If you've got £1,000 in the bank, or let's say £2,000 in the bank, do you register your logo as a trademark, or do you buy a van? There is no right answer. No. By the way, there is no right answer, because whatever way you go, if you register logo as a trademark, and then you don't really get anywhere because you now can't tour or buy amps or whatever it is, play pub gigs, that's a mistake.
Yeah.
If you buy the van, or let's say you buy, some amps and you do some recording and pay some recordings, great. And then you discover someone's got your name.
Yeah.
So you've got to then rebrand and do it all again. There is no right answer.
No.
But it's difficult. If you don't ever think about it, That's the biggest mistake.
Yeah, I suppose you've got to address the business side of it, but you've also got to keep it fun.
Yeah, but you know, if you're sitting there writing songs, the last thing you'll be worrying about is, you know, oh gosh, is there someone sitting there nicking my name, or not just nicking my name, is someone there nicking my songs?
Yeah, but I think in every band there needs to be someone like that, someone who's got that sort of mentality.
Well, Coldplay have got
to
a
lead.
fifth member.
Have they?
Yeah, they have got a fifth member.
Is that the manager?
No, they have a fifth member.
Who's that?
You don't know, do you?
No.
I can't remember his name. Phil, who does the business.
Oh, okay, right.
They've always done that.
Yeah.
And he is a fifth member.
Yeah.
But he's not a member. But obviously he's not a performer. But he's a fifth member.
Just as important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a manager as well.
Yeah. That's a sign of how it is today. That's the sign of what's changed.
It is, and that's not. I mean, normally in most bands, you'll have, as the band develops, there'll be someone who's got an idea.
Yeah.
Not an idea, a better idea. You know, but not necessarily.
Yeah, well, you have to have a driving force.
Yeah.
One person who's sort of thinking about all those things.
I mean, I don't think it's ever been a secret to Rolling Stones that Mick Jagger is a particularly able businessman who, for a long time, thank goodness for the band, has for many decades understood where the money is and how to protect the other members of the band.
Yeah.
It's a joint thing. But there again, it's not always that nice. I mean, Ronnie Wood was a salaried member of the Rolling Stones for many people thought, well, Ronnie's in the Rolling Stones. Well, no, he's not. Well, yeah, he is. And no, he's not. Really? Yeah. You know, you've got Keith Richards and Mick Jagger write the songs.
Yeah.
And they're they've got their own relationship.
Yeah.
Then you got Charlie, and you used to have the other one.
Yeah.
No, but you know, who were in the band, and then the others were all salaried. So, and people thought, what?
Yeah, it's not really a band sort of mentality, though, is
It's
it?
not, but it's good business.
I suppose if your salary's really good.
By the way, I've never read their interband agreements. I don't know how they were salaried or when they were. But no, you know, it also meant that Mick was the one who said, no, the band owned the Lips trademark. Yeah. Which meant that if anyone wants to use it, they have to pay. They have to pay a lot. And that's right.
Yeah. They came up with that. So.
Conversely, I've got to tell you that one of the shortest contracts I've ever done for Glastonbury was the Rolling Stones contract.
Shortest in terms of?
Well, we just both tore up each other's agreements and started from scratch. And it worked perfectly.
Yeah.
You know, lawyers love long agreements. But when it comes down to it, most things can reduce to a couple of pages of A4, can't they?
Yeah, that's at the very core, I suppose.
Yeah, at the very core.
The most important thing.
It wasn't.
Did you see that thing recently? The Virgin Trains that are in trouble for their advert, using a band's music without permission.
Oh, have they? No. Which one have they used?
A band called, I've written it down, Carnifex. They're like a death metal band.
Have they?
Yeah. It's big furore about. Have you heard it? The Virgin Trains advert.
Without permission?
Yeah.
No, surely not.
Yeah, I remember the advert now. I've seen it on TV.
There was a woman who's got a job interview.
Yes, I've seen that one.
Asking her about which if she uses
train or
trains,
car.
The
shoe falls off in the car, it's raining,
yeah,
she gets escorted off by security.
That heavy metal music, when all the things going wrong, that's a band called Carnifex, who they didn't ask for permission.
All their advertising agency didn't, but yes, even so.
Yeah, the band knew nothing about it. So there's a big...
Oh, you do get terrible... I mean...
But on a national advert, I mean...
have you heard of a band called One Direction?
So I'm familiar with them.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Which one?
Oh, I think I've heard of this.
Yeah, no, they had to, in effect, and also Rhythmics.
Yeah.
Little Mix.
Ah, okay. Right.
There was a charity. So both of those there were pre-existing trademarks in the music industry, let's say. But One Direction in particular, there was another band. No, not in the United Kingdom, but in America.
Right.
America, it's quite a big market, and you know, mistakes happen. But people using music without permission is in the wrong. I mean, the ones who do it most of all are politicians.
Oh yeah.
And then particularly right-wing politicians, weirdly, and then protest their. Well, we don't have to get. I was going to fake American accent, which I'm not doing. We don't have to get permission. You're a politician.
Why not?
You're the person who enforces or writes laws and creates laws and legislates. Yes, you do.
Yeah. Trump used Twisted Sister. When are going to take it?
He's used many.
Yeah,
they all do, though, and they all get criticised.
Virgin Trains.
But in advertising, that is quite a mistake, actually.
I don't know what's going to come up. I don't know what the repercussions of that'll be. But that was
what repercussions be?
Mm.
Well, either a settlement or a court case, I imagine.
I'm sure the band would just take a settlement, I guess. Oh, this is what you should have paid us, so give us it now.
Yeah.
It'd help.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, I'm surprised.
I am
to hear that.
Very surprised. It's very, very unusual.
Mm.
There's an area of law called fair use, and we call it fair dealing. Where
they have that on podcasts as well.
Yeah, where you can use within certain prescribed and confined criteria.
I'm sure that's what Virgin Trains will play on, but
no, not for an advert. It's almost unthinkable that you could use it for an advert. It's purely commercial use.
Yeah, it's true.
But you never know.
Yeah.
Maybe they will.
Yeah. I mean, it is only, when it goes to certain sections, it is only that music for a couple of seconds, and then it goes back to Spandau Ballet, which I'm sure they've come to a sort of arrangement to use that.
Yeah.
So why would they do that? Because that's a big band. So
I mean, the whole thing, there's a big, big, big debate going on, there has been for a number of years now, about sampling and whether or not is it right that those, in certain circumstances, when, in particular in certain genres, let's say hip-hop, when you use a 1 second clip, but it's in you'll use 50 1 second clips, why do you have to pay the person who created that 1 second clip, either as a song or as a sound recording? Because
without that person creating it, you wouldn't have it.
Yep. Which is a logical argument.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that was big a few years ago. The guitar riff from Every Breath You Take by The Police.
Yeah.
That was sampled by P. Diddy for his song I'll Be Missing You.
Oh, yeah.
But all the royalties went to Sting because he wrote the song that it was sampled from.
Yeah.
And there was a big hoo-ha about that.
Yeah. And, the Verve...
Oh, Bittersweet Symphony.
Don't get a penny for it. In fact, go to Rolling Stones, Keith Richards and Mick Jagger technically won an Ivor Novello Award for writing Bittersweet Symphony.
Yeah.
And they get all the royalties for both the song and the sound recording. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's right or wrong.
Yeah. Does that mean the Verve, you didn't use that without permission, did they?
It's a complex case.
Unless they didn't come to the right arrangement for it, I suppose. But it's a pretty high-profile thing to get wrong.
It's happened many a time.
Yeah. That's another minefield, isn't it? Getting permission for
clearances.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
Because and doing covers of songs as well. That's another.
Covers.
Well, especially if you're going to put it on your album, I suppose, and sell
your
album.
Well, there's two things. If you do a cover, we have a statutory system of licensing a song. As long as you pay the set agreed royalty rate, you should be okay.
Okay.
It's more incorporating a sound recording into your song.
Oh, right.
Or not asking permission to create a new song using part of another song.
Right.
That's where the issues arise.
I see. Right.
And boy, there are many, many cases.
Yeah,
we could be
bet.
for days, Mark, talking about those.
Isn't there a thing about Led Zeppelin?
Yeah, they won.
They've been.
They won. They've been sued a number of times. They most recently won with "Stairway to Heaven" against a band called
accusing them of
Taurus.
saying that they've ripped. Led Zeppelin have ripped other people off.
Yeah.
But that's been thrown out.
The ones that I think at the moment, the last big one, "Stairway to Heaven," they won, but there'll be another one next week.
Yeah.
I think one of the problems with music is there'll always be cases because how many riffs actually are there?
Yeah.
In reality,
how many chords are there?
Yeah. How many chords are there? How many? Actually, same as writing. People say you stole my idea. Well, in British law or English law, an idea is not protected by copyright, but the expression of an idea is. But so you start at the basics. You've stolen my idea. You shouldn't write another horror story ever. Well, no, you're allowed to write horror stories. What you're not allowed to do is write Frankenstein. What? But you can write a story based on monsters.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right? So you can't write Frankenstein, but you can write a story based around monsters. Yeah. Where is the line drawn?
Yeah.
Well, you can't draw a line.
No.
You can't, whether it's
You
right.
can't even see the line.
You can't even see the line. I mean, this recent one about the battle between Marvin Gaye's estate and Pharrell and what's he called? Robin Thicke.
Yeah.
About whether or not I forget the names of the songs now. Whether or not they copied his song, or as they said, no, we copied his vibe. And in law, you can't protect. In law, you can't protect a vibe. No, you can protect a song.
Who'd have thought you can't protect a vibe?
Well, no,
wow.
But you can protect a song, and that's gone to appeal, and it will probably not, well, it will end up in the Supreme Court in America.
Because of going back to the file sharing thing, wasn't that recently that MP3.org or whatever it's called, the website that everyone rips MP3s from.
Oh, YouTube MP.
YouTube,
yeah.
That's been shut down.
It's shut down. Yeah.
That was like.
But that's out and out piracy, really.
Yeah. But that's because that was one of the most popular websites.
Yeah, for a short period. Yeah, they come and they go.
Each time one of these gets shut down, there's another one just up and up. It's just how do they track them all? How do you police that?
And that's again going back to now when I swap sides and say I am a supporter of the record labels, saying they say, well, how come Google doesn't seem to be able to understand or put in place technology as one of the world's leading technology company? Why can't they put in place better technology to stop? So let's say, every time Pirate Bay shuts down, why is Pirate Bay back up again?
Yeah, or a variation of
it. Or a variation.
It's a valid question.
Every time what the record label tells you, right, we found, let's pick a track at random, Angels by Robbie Williams being copied. So we shut down that site with 100 versions or 100 Angels and another 1,000 Robbie Williams songs.
Yeah.
Why next day
Pretty much.
is it happen again?
Yeah.
And they call it whack-a-mole, because you whack the mole and the head pops up through another mole hole. You whack that one down, it pops up.
Because the first time that happened was when Metallica and Lars Ulrich took the hit for.
It was.
And
they were one of the most. They were the earliest, probably, band to take a stand.
And they got huge backlash.
They got huge backlash.
So the fans breaking up the CD.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't really quite. I didn't have a particular side. I didn't really understand it, but he was right. He was just. Yeah. They were because they were working on a song and they hadn't even finished the song, and it was on the internet.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Hold on a minute. That means we have no control over our own." And they thought and no money's been exchanged for that. So they were just thinking ahead. But everyone just thought, they're just being money grabbing and just like they were right. They were proved right. But all the other artists, I saw an interview with Lars and he was saying, there's loads of other artists going, "Oh, we think it's great what you're doing," and he was going, "Oh, come on, you make a stand." No, you. Because they were too scared of the backlash themselves. But if they all stood up together, then it would show what the point was.
It has shifted, but you also see now with we spoke about earlier with the secondary ticketing market. Not all artists want to make a stand, or frankly are in a position to take a stand. Because you know what, some artists, and I can't name names because I couldn't prove it, but some artists almost certainly do sell part of their inventory, or their company or their management on their behalf arrange to sell part of their inventory to not to a secondary ticketing platform, because they make loads of money out of it. They might need that money to make the tour happen. But you think, well, how's that right? And you think, well, because it's economics, and sometimes they have to do that. But then some just do it for greed, I'm sure. Some go, well, right. Or not greed, they go, why shouldn't we? Otherwise we get no share. So why aren't we're not being smart? What we are being smart is to say, right, so we'll sell 10% of our tickets not to a tout, you know what I mean, but to a secondary platform to take the pressure off. Well, is that right or wrong? Well, It encourages secondary platforms. Therefore, I'm still not at all comfy with it. Not at all. But I can also understand why, in certain scenarios, it might be sensible.
Yeah. But I don't know.
Hey, lawyers, we always think about all sorts of different sort of things because we always end up trying to sort of,
You got to steer the ship.
Well, you've got to come to a solution. There's never, because we're humans, black and white doesn't work. So, and people say, what do you mean? I said, well, is murder wrong? Is it? Should we allow murder? Should we allow murder?
Under what circumstances?
Under what circumstances? Then that's the next question. So you say, well, what about our armed forces? When they're in a war situation, when we fight an enemy, should they be allowed to kill? Oh, yes. Always? Yes. Then you think about the recent Iraq things they were doing, some of the stories in Iraq where perhaps war crimes took place.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Get killed.
Yeah. Civilians get killed. Oh, maybe not again. Okay, move away again, and I'm really not going to get into this. Is abortion right or wrong? Is it murder? And I'm really not getting into it. But societies have to draw lines, always. So at a much lower level, let's be honest, right? They're big problems and they're big issues. But with ticket touting, we've got to think, is it right? Is it wrong? I think we both think it's wrong. But in certain situations, you think, right, I understand why an artist might actually say, right, actually, we think we need to do something to share in the revenue, or we won't get any of it, and it'll still happen. So if we just say no touting, and there's touting, and we say, well, we can't stop it, then we lose out.
That's true.
So difficult. And lawyers have to draw those, well, not lawyers, courts normally, rather than lawyers. Lawyers just get involved. We get paid for it, don't we? But courts and judges have to draw that line. Whether it's about, is that right to tout or not, or should there be touting? But it's also, what does touting mean? But also things like, talking about copyright infringement. When is something, should it be allowable for fair use or fair dealing, or when's it not? When's it copying?
Yeah. I remember YouTube changed their tack on, if someone put something that was copyrighted or they didn't own it, it used to get taken down.
Straight away, yeah.
But as that got more and more, that got very complicated and so many things.
Yeah.
But now I've noticed sometimes if they recognise it's a certain artist, but this person's up doesn't own it, any revenue that comes from it just goes to the artist.
Yeah. Well, that's an idea. It does work. That's the labels taking a pragmatic approach again.
Yeah.
Right, we can see that happening. Well, we'd rather just shift the flow of revenues away from that person to us. Thank you very much, because we own it.
Yeah.
It does make sense.
But this, like you said, in terms of your job, the goalposts are always moving. The lines always.
They are. I mean, one of the most famous cases was the dancing baby case, which was where a mum put up, I think, a 10-second clip of a baby dancing, to a Prince track.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And,
I remember that.
Prince's companies were quite litigious, and they said, no, we've got to take it down. And she said, well, why don't you take it down? I don't care what track it is. The key is my baby dancing. It's funny, and it went viral. And I don't want to make money out of it, but I don't want you taking it down. What I want you to do is let it stay up. Well, we can't. It's our music. No, it's not. It's my baby dancing. It's our music. It's my, And that, again, what's important?
Yeah.
What they were saying is important. Well, the record label, Prince's record company was saying, no, it's our song and our sound recording. She said, I don't care what it is. It happens to be that. But what's much more important is my baby dancing. So leave it up. In fact, how dare you take it down? That's an infringement of my rights. And they're saying that's an infringement of my, no, it's an infringement of our rights. Someone somewhere has to, they have to draw a line. They have to draw a line. And in that case, the Supreme Court of the United States of America has to draw a line. There you go.
So what was the result of that?
What was it? The final result was it was allowed to stay up. In America, they have a freedom of expression. You heard that under the American Constitution, overrides all.
Right, yeah.
So her freedom of expression overruled their copyright in those, but only in those circumstances.
Right. So does that come back to fair use then, since it was only a 10-second
It was fair
clip?
use, yeah.
Yeah.
It was fair use, yeah.
Here's something that we talked about just earlier as we were setting up. Last night I was watching a film, an American film, and I recognised a lot of the songs on it, but I noticed that they were all sped up a little bit and the pitch was higher. Just slightly. And I wonder, is that some kind of ploy so that they don't have to pay for full rights of use?
No, that wouldn't. I don't think that would work. I'm sure that wouldn't work.
I know what you mean. I've noticed that.
So why would they do it?
Well, people do re-record songs because they'll get the song cleared with the music publisher.
Oh yeah, you get that in supermarkets and stuff.
Yeah, but the record label, the artist said, absolutely no way, so he's recorded.
Yeah.
But then you get even more complex stuff about sound likes. Because if it's recorded to sound like the original recording, which of course it will be, then that
adverts
could be,
do that a lot.
Adverts do.
It's cheaper to do that.
It is cheap. Well, until you get sued.
Until it sounds too much.
Too much, exactly, and then you get sued.
Yeah.
But not in this country because we don't have that sort of right. But most countries in the world do have that right. We don't actually have image rights in this country per se.
Because in this country it'll be cheaper to get a load of cheap musicians to record
cover
versions of, and just pay whatever the license
nothing.
For that. Nothing.
Very, very little.
Because you go in a supermarket and you go, oh, that's that song. And he goes, that's not the original version.
No,
They've done it again.
They've done it again. Yeah. I mean, the situation in this country is rather complex because we have certain image rights, but we don't have a standalone image right. But most countries in the world, well, certainly in America, which is the biggest one, you do have that right.
Okay, right.
There you go. I'm boring you again, aren't I?
No. It's all interesting.
No, I'm not boring you, but I'm sorry. When you talked about this other day, just switch off and they go, really? No,
but there's just so much to you. Like, I mean, working today versus working 25 years ago, there must be a lot more stuff that you have to, like, string to your bows that you have to deal with.
Well, maybe. I mean, there's always been, for example, we talk about piracy, and we talked about there's always been the big change has been the technological shifts.
Yeah.
There's always, as long as there's been any technology, there's been piracy. So we always used to make ourselves mixtapes. Before that, we made ourselves. People could always do something with technology. I think what's changed is with digital is the shift from the slow. We used to burn, in effect, or copy cassettes.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to pirate them, you had to copy them in effect one at a time. But you had to buy 10 banks.
Yeah.
Now it's a click of a switch. You can do it a billion times.
Yeah.
It's out there. That's been the biggest shift.
Yeah. Because back in the day, tape trading, that was...
Yeah, it went on. But it was slow. Doing bootleg records.
That was a type of piracy, I guess.
You had to press the records. I mean, you could press them quite fast.
Yeah.
Press bootlegs, which was illegal recordings of concerts, and then release them as vinyl and then as cassettes. It just took a lot of time. Now, you get a recording. You mentioned earlier, one of you mentioned about someone getting hold of a part of a new recording. You did about a new recording Metallica. It's out there next day.
Yeah.
It's literally out there. And everyone can get it.
But at least back then, people still would buy an album when it came out, pre-internet. But now you're going to get whole generations of people growing up who are used to the idea of not paying for music.
Yeah, that's not paying for music has been a big shift.
People not realising the consequences of not
paying.
People have spent hours and loads of money making that. There's all these people involved. If no one's buying it, then none of those people get paid, and eventually no one will be able to make it.
But it's not even that now. People just think, well, I don't know where it came from. I don't know whose it is.
I just click a button and it's there.
It's mine. Yeah. Well, not mine. I've got access to it. That's the difference. People say, "Oh, you're stealing music." I say, "No, I'm just listening to it."
Yeah.
But you're stealing it. No, I'm just listening to it.
There's also no connection to where it's come from.
Where it's come from. Whereas I think, I'll be honest, when we were younger, if you bought a bootleg, you knew it was a recording made, and you knew it's got no record label on it. They're almost proud of it. Now it is the lack of thought.
But even back then, I did used to buy some LPs, but like buying CDs, I always used to love reading the liner notes.
Oh, I loved it.
Where it was recorded, when it was recorded, who was involved.
I've always loved album covers. I even found when CDs came out, I didn't like CDs so much because vinyl covers was great. Gatefold covers were brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they were wonderful things.
But even then, they still had the pages with all the lyrics and liner notes and all sorts of stuff in them.
It's horrible. What's a download?
But
nothing.
Now,
nothing there, is there?
You get a little picture, and that's it.
Yeah, thumbnail.
Yeah.
So you click on it. Yeah.
That's a huge loss to the whole artistic side of it, I think.
It is, yeah. It is, yeah.
And people listening in little tiny earbuds, or people listening on the loudspeaker of their phone, which is just...
Oh, that's just weird.
But people do it all the time. I see
know.
it all the time.
Is that a cultural shift recently, though? Because people didn't used to do that.
Young people these days.
But now, I think it's offensive because I may not want to listen to your music.
Exactly.
I may like it, I may not like it, but I may not want to like it at that moment.
Well, there's that, but there's also the fact that that song is not going to sound very good coming out of shitty speakers on a phone.
No.
Plus, it's annoying to other people.
It's annoying to other people. It's weird, isn't it?
But that's the latest generation. That's just normal for them. Like, you can have a whole group of them around a phone watching a YouTube video, something on YouTube, and the sound is terrible, and you know it's terrible.
Do you know we're starting to sound like old people?
I don't care.
I don't mind it that much.
I will fight the cause.
I don't mind phone speakers that much.
Oh, I do.
Just to watch a quick video here and there.
Yeah, but I'm talking about listening to actual songs.
Yeah, well.
Like, you've got this Bluetooth speaker, which is really good.
Yeah,
you played tunes before you came in, and I was commenting how good it sounds.
Yeah.
But if you had your phone on, I'd say, turn it off.
All right. But if I didn't have an alternative, I wouldn't, like...
Well, the other thing is, like he said, inconvenience. If you're in public, and people have their phones on really loud playing music. Just...
Oh, yeah, no, I never do that. I never do that. But, like, if there was no speakers around, I would just put my phone there and play music out of it, or listen to a podcast on it. If I didn't have any speakers around, I don't mind it.
Some people would actually, that's the way they listen to music.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
It is made better by speakers, I have to admit.
I mean, technology anyway has changed irritating things. I mean, before pre-mobiles, obviously there were no mobiles.
Yeah.
And I don't know what middle-aged, middle management men did when they were travelling, but they didn't shout into their phones to try and prove how important they are in life. So, now they do, and you think, why have you got on this train, normally into the quiet carriage, I quite like going to now, why do they always gather in the quiet carriage to shout down their mobiles about irrelevancies, which I don't care about sort of, whatever project they're working on or sales patter they want to get through. You think, why are you on my train shouting about it? Oh, because that's what they do nowadays.
That's where Trigger Happy TV came from.
Absolutely. Hello, it was. And the minute we all saw that, we all knew it.
I've seen that.
Yeah, we knew it was. Tom Jolly, he's in
the library.
Shit. Yeah. No, it was. You get it now, but technology's been obviously both an advantage,
a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, blessing and a curse.
So is the internet. I see it. That's how I see it.
Yeah, it's I mean, for me, I was talking earlier about with my job. My job's become easier and harder because of the internet. But certainly
more complex.
More complex, yeah. But not radically different. I think when you look at the major shifts, we all think that the internet is the biggest major shift. No, printing was probably the first massive shift. Yeah. The fact when someone worked out they could print something, and then it's the same thing. They could duplicate it and reproduce it and distribute it. That was a major shift.
Yeah.
Then when they could broadcast stuff, so you didn't need the physical side, you could broadcast, and people they'd need a radio to listen to it. It didn't matter. But then once they got a radio, you could send them. They could acquire anything. And then we've gone through a number of shifts, TV, but the internet has been radical. The interesting about the internet as well, I think digital, it's given us all a way of making things and creating. And once you can create through that, it's been completely different.
And distribute as well.
And then redistribute back again.
Yeah.
That's been the big change.
It's also made us more self-aware, I think, of like the truth. Like before, you were just what you read in the paper. That's all you got, or what you heard on TV.
Yeah.
Whereas now you get people like Vice TV, or there's all these outlets who are covering the news. So you hear news stories and you go, "Why is that not in the mainstream news? Why have they ignored that?" Like you never used to have that. You would never know. There's things going on in the world, but the mainstream only focuses on certain things, and there's obviously lots of political reasons why they do that. But on the internet, you can still find out about everything that's going on. I think that's something that never people are more switched on, I suppose, in the world about what's going on.
Do you think so?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I think people have always been switched on. Some people have always been switched on, but it's easy to find.
Yeah, but I don't think like before the internet there was nowhere. If someone like I don't know, you're aware of Vice.com, the things that they do. Yeah, like they do a lot of like documentaries and short films on certain things that are outside of what the mainstream media would report on. But before the internet, they wouldn't have a place to be heard, or you wouldn't have a place to find them.
Well, going back 300 years, you'd have coffee shops in London. They did. People used to go and sit in coffee shops and discuss politics.
Or gossip.
Gossip. Yeah, pretty gossip. Well, a lot of the internet is full of absolute garbage as well.
There is that, yeah. There's always going to be that, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's changed, but it's good and bad.
Yeah. Oh, well, Ben, it's been great to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Thank God.
So how long were we going?
We were
2 hours 10.
2 hours 10, there you go.
2 hours 10, and I thought, and I said, you won't keep me here for long.
So,
it's been brilliant.
Tell people, what's your website?
My Music Law Updates website.
Yeah.
It's Music Law Updates, but it's www.musiclawupdates.com.
Yeah.
There's a blog as well.
Yeah, I've been, to be fair, I've been checking it out quite regularly now because it's quite, I like a lot of
the
stories
that's
on
flattering.
it. Yeah, it's quite good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Flattering.
A lot of like some of the things that I've wrote down to talk to you about here, I got off your website. Some of I'm always interested in the copyright infringements and the publishing and all that. Because that's
ever-changing.
Yeah.
Ever-changing feast.
Are you on Twitter or anything like that? Do you use it?
Not for my legal stuff.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
No.
No worries. But if anyone wanted to contact you,
I'm everywhere, mate. I'm not. No, I'm not. Yeah.
But if anybody wanted to contact you for whatever reason, just do through your website, I suppose.
They could try. What do they want to contact me for? No one can contact me.
You never know on this thing.
No one can contact me. I'm a very private person.
If you managed to find him, well done.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. It took one of the Penrith junior football teams about, I don't know how they found me immediately. I sent them some photos which I'd taken at a game, and their coach distributed them. And obviously, the captain found me like within seconds. I could work out. Bloody hell, has he found me?
Oh, there you go. Oh, well, Ben Challis, thank you very much for joining us. It's been great to talk to you. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Thank you both as well. Cheers.